Chapter 1011. Jianshan carefully controlled the emperor's power to float above his hand. With a flash, he arrived behind King and swung the emperor's power towards King's head. A gleam of light flashed through the eyes of the Path Lord of carnal desires who had been watching from afar. He stared at the droplet of emperor's power in Jianshan's hand in interest, and his face changed slightly. He cried out inside, "Holy Emperor's power." I never thought that Jianshan would actually possess Holy Emperor's power. Look at the surging water energy in the droplet. It must have come from a Holy Emperor of the Sea Realm. Holy Emperor's power is enough to pose a threat to Holy Emperor experts. King's soul has been injured by the Balefulline force, so he must be in excruciating pain right now. He can't pay attention to the outside world at all. I wonder if Jianshan's Holy Emperor's power can heavily injure King. The light in the Path Lord's eyes immediately flickered when he thought up to there. Slivers of extremely well-hidden light leaked out from time to time. Houston also noticed the droplet of Emperor's power in Jianshan's hand. Seeing how Jianshan controlled the Emperor's power to strike King's head, Houston's eyes immediately lit up. A sliver of eagerness appeared in his heart. Lankiros naturally discovered the Emperor's power in Jianshan's hand as well. However, when he saw what Jianshan was doing, he could not help but sneer coldly. Bang! Jianshan's hand finally struck the back of King's head heavily with the Emperor's power. It actually produced a heavy sound. Immediately, a terrifying shock wave of energy erupted like a flood, blowing Jianshan far away. Jianshan rapidly retreated. He only stabilized himself after flying several thousand meters. His right hand that had struck King's head began to tremble uncontrollably, and his face became extremely ugly. There was some disbelief. When he had struck Kaiser's head earlier, he felt like he had struck an extremely tough wall of steel. Not only did it fail to shatter Kaiser's head as he had expected, but it did not even heavily injure him. The Emperor's power actually failed to pierce King's head. Instead, it exploded on King's scalp. King's head is just too tough, Jianshan thought. He could sense that the Emperor's power did not pose much of a threat to King at all. King's body was so tough that it had completely exceeded his expectations. I never thought that King's body would be so terrifying. He really is a race close to the dragon race, after all. If it weren't for the fact that I'm skilled in the ability to affect the souls of people, I probably wouldn't have been King's opponent when I fought him. The Path Lord of Carnal Desires was secretly shocked as he watched from afar. Arg, Shameless Jr., how dare you launch a sneak attack on me? I will tear you to pieces today, King roared furiously. Kaiser furiously roared at the sky. Although Jianshan's strand of Saint Emperor power did not pose any threat to him, it reduced him to a much worse shape. With his status and strength, he had been bullied to such a state by a human junior. How could the proud and lofty king accept this? This was because this was a great humiliation to him. Suddenly, King's gaze became extremely terrifying. The muscles on his face twisted, making him seem like a demon that had emerged from hell. Just a single glance was enough to make people tremble. King did his best to suppress the intense pain from his soul. He stared at Jianshan coldly, as if he wanted nothing more than to drink Jianshan's blood and eat Jianshan's flesh. King suddenly vanished. When he reappeared, he was before Jianshan. His hand had completely transformed into a dragon's claw, reaching for Jianshan's head without any mercy. At the same time, the space around Jianshan froze once more. His movements had been restricted by King's frozen space, so he could not use the Saint artifact to block. Jianshan's eyes rapidly narrowed. King's claw constantly enlarged in his eyes, but unfortunately, his body had been restrained and he had lost the ability to move. All he could do was watch as the claw drew closer and closer. In this moment of life and death, the space beside him suddenly ripped open. A shining holy sword with terrifying pressure suddenly appeared, shooting toward King's claw that was reaching for Jianshan's throat as a golden bolt of lightning. Clang! The shining holy sword collided with King's claw, immediately erupting with the earth-shaking sound of metal clashing. After the attack, the sacred sword bounced back, and the King's dragon claw was also deflected by the sword. There was a small wound on the dragon claw, and traces of red blood flowed out. It was the Holy Emperor's blood. Although it was only a sliver, it was extremely eye-catching. The terrifying energy within the blood could be clearly felt. King was immediately shocked by the wound on his claw. This was because his claw was the toughest part of his body. Even the Holy Emperor would not be able to damage it. A weapon with origin energy, the Holy Dragon's sword. King looked at the holy sword wrapped in golden light as he growled. A space gate quickly took shape. The golden-armored Rui Jin and the fire-robed Hong Lian stepped out of the space gate together. Rui Jin extended his hand, and the holy dragon's sword flew over as a streak of light. It obediently landed in Rui Jin's hand. Rui Jin stared at King emotionlessly as he gripped the holy dragon's sword. He growled, "I never thought I'd see a mutated earth dragon like you so soon. Do you really want to oppose me?" King glared at Rui Jin viciously. He gritted his teeth. "It's you again. You're the emperor of the dragon race, but there are no dragons in this era. I'd advise you not to oppose me, or I'll kill you as well." "A mutated earth dragon. Do you really think you can kill me?" Rui Jin growled. His face was extremely sunken. As the emperor of the dragon race, Rui Jin was extremely furious to be threatened by a mere mutated earth dragon. King stopped wasting his breath on Rui Jin. He turned to the path lord of carnal desires and called out, "Holy Emperor of the humans, it's time for you to act." The light in the path lord's eyes flickered. He remained silent and took a step forward, instantly crossing over 10 kilometers to arrive before Rui Jin. Rui Jin's face sank when he saw that. He growled, "Holy Emperor of the humans, I never thought you'd be working with this mutated earth dragon to harm a genius of your human race." Chapter 10:12. Rui Jin wielded the sacred sword of the dragons. As he swung his arm, the sacred dragon's sword immediately shone with golden light as it slashed toward the path lord with a shocking strand of sword chi. Boom! The sacred dragon's sword collided with the path lord's surging energy in the air, immediately erupting with a deafening rumble. Under the terrifying shock waves of energy, the mountains below collapsed one by one, reducing the entire Cross Mountains to a mess. A large number of weak magical beasts had died to the combined attacks of Rui Jin and the Path Lord. The frozen space around Jianshan shattered from the combined attacks of Rui Jin and the Path Lord. As soon as Jianshan recovered his ability to move, he was struck by the shock waves of energy. He was immediately blown away like a broken kite. "Let's fight in outer space, or this continent will definitely be plunged into misery and suffering," the Path Lord said emotionlessly. The Path Lord of carnal desires said emotionlessly. As soon as he finished speaking, he took to the air and flew away. Rui Jin turned to Hong Lian and said sternly, "The Holy Emperor's path of emotions is a soul attack. It can affect the soul of a person without them noticing. You haven't completely refined the pearl that protects your soul, so I'll keep him busy. You have to stay behind and protect Jianshan." Hong Lian nodded sternly. Afterwards, white flames radiated from her body, enveloping her completely. Immediately, terrifying heat filled the surroundings, causing the temperature in the surroundings to skyrocket. Very soon, it reached an extremely terrifying level, as if the air was burning. Through the white flames, one could vaguely see that Hong Lian had already donned a feathery robe that was completely woven from feathers. This was the legacy treasure of the Divine Wind Clan, the 9 refined Divine Fire Robe. Coupled with the strengthening of the origin energy, the defensive power of the legacy treasure greatly increased, allowing it to block the attacks of the Holy Emperor without being destroyed. Hong Lian was only at the great perfection of the Holy Emperor. She could not even escape from the Holy Emperor with that kind of strength. However, if she used the 2 legacy treasures of the Divine Phoenix clan, she would be able to contend against the Holy Emperor. Origin energy. It's actually origin energy again. King stared at Hong Lian, who was enveloped in white flames, and said with a deep voice. Perhaps it was because he was doing his best to suppress the pain in his soul, but the muscles on his face constantly trembled, making him seem extremely vicious. King's eyes flickered as he looked at Hong Lian, and he said in a deep voice, "Little Phoenix, seeing that you are a member of the Beast clan, I will not make things difficult for you. It's best if you don't interfere with my actions." After saying that, King turned into a bolt of lightning and flew past Honglian, directly chasing after Jinshin. However, just as King passed by Honglian, the white flames around Honglian suddenly began to surge violently. In an instant, they condensed into a huge white phoenix and swallowed King's body. "Little Phoenix, since you don't know what's good for you, don't blame me for being impolite." Tyrant Dragon Fist. King's furious roar came from the belly of the phoenix, formed from white flames. With a loud boom, the phoenix formed from white flames was shattered by King's punch. The phoenix immediately disintegrated, turning into flames that floated in the void. The terrifying heat caused the space to distort. Honglian hovered in the air sternly in her robes of 9 refined god flames. Her fire-red hair danced wildly in the wind. Suddenly, she spread her arms and called out, "Purifying flames of white blaze, return." The white flames that King had scattered seemed to be guided by mysterious power, gathering towards Honglian from all directions. "Sky-scorching flames, inferno, inferno." Honglian called out. The white flames that had gathered around her began to rapidly compress, turning into a fist-sized sphere very soon. Afterwards, the sphere exploded, turning into flames that rapidly expanded in all directions. In the end, it formed a 10-kilometer-wide fireball that enveloped King. White flames roared within the fireball, making it seem like a sea of fire. The temperature was so great that it could incinerate everything. King stood in the sea of fire. He was surrounded by a powerful barrier of energy that blocked the flames. Although the white flames were terrifying, they clearly posed no threat to King, who had reached the level of the Holy Emperor. Honglian also appeared in the sea of fire. Her red wings were particularly eye-catching in this space filled with white flames. "Little Phoenix, you're not my opponent. If you know what's good for you, back off quickly," King coldly said. He stared at Honglian coldly. Honglian was protected by the robes of origin energy, so it was impossible for him to reach her. As a result, King did not want to continue fighting with Honglian. "Although the Inferno is no threat to you, it will constantly drain away your energy," Honglian said calmly. She slowly raised her hand, and a fiery red hairpin gradually appeared. Immediately, a mysterious and powerful energy radiated from the hairpin. "It's origin energy again. God damn it. How do you have so much origin energy on you?" King's face changed slightly. Swish! With a piercing sound, the hairpin in Honglian's hand turned into a bolt of lightning, shooting toward King with lightning speed. King bellowed out. His right hand turned into a powerful dragon claw in a single instance. He swung it at the incoming hairpin. Ding! With the sound of metal clashing, the hairpin was knocked away by King's claw. However, King's claw remained intact. King's eyes immediately lit up. He thought, "This weapon with origin energy is nowhere near as powerful as the Sacred Dragon Sword." A sliver of excitement appeared in King's heart. His fear for Honglian had decreased by a lot, so he immediately charged at Honglian. His right hand that had turned into a dragon claw reached for Honglian with lightning speed. Honglian was a holy emperor at the great perfection of holy emperor. She was unable to dodge the attack of a holy emperor, so King's claw viciously struck the 9 refined Godfire robes on her chest. The 9 refined Godfire feather raiment was undamaged, but a powerful force pierced through the 9 refined Godfire feather raiment and struck Honglian. Spurt! Honglian's face paled, and she immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. Her entire body was sent flying. "Ha ha ha ha! I never thought that your treasure would be nowhere near as tough as the other 2. I'd like to see how you deal with me now," King laughed aloud. Chapter 10:13. Honglian clenched her teeth when she heard Kaiser's arrogant words. Determination filled her eyes. Although she did not know Jinshin, she had to protect Jinshin no matter what to reunite with her clansmen who had disappeared for so long. Even if she ended up heavily injured, she would not hesitate to do so. The scorching godfire, heavenly hairpin that had been sent flying flew back into Hong Lian's hand under the control of her mind. Hong Lian's hands constantly changed in front of her chest, forming a series of complicated hand seals. At the same time, she called out Flying Flame Meteor. As Hong Lian spat out those words, the scorching godfire, heavenly hairpin in front of her suddenly erupted with flames. The hairpin, that was only the size of a palm, began to expand at a visible rate. In the blink of an eye, it had become a huge hairpin that was 10 meters long. The flames burned on the surface. Swish! With an ear-piercing sound, the 10-meter-long, blazing divine fire hairpin turned into a streak of red light and shot towards the king with terrifying energy fluctuations. Its speed was inconceivable. "Little Phoenix, you're not my opponent. Don't fail to appreciate my kindness," Kaiser called out. He suddenly struck out with his right arm that had turned into a dragon's claw, sending the hairpin flying again. Afterwards, he ignored Hong Lian and immediately chased after Jinshin. Jinshin had already vanished from Kaiser's sight. He had left the Cross Mountains and was rapidly approaching Mercenary City. Even so, Kaiser could still clearly sense Jinshin's exact location. He thought, "I can't let Jinshin go to Mercenary City no matter what, or it'll be troublesome. Your opponent is me. If you want to deal with Jinshin, you have to get through me first." Hong Lian's cold voice rang out. She controlled the hairpin to constantly attack Kaiser, obstructing his path. Although the hairpin possessed origin energy, Hong Lian had not completely refined it, so she was unable to unleash its full power. As a result, she was unable to pose much of a threat to Kaiser. All she could do was stall him, preventing him from dealing with Jinshin. Kaiser became filled with killing intent after being obstructed by Hong Lian time and time again. He roared out, "Since you don't know what's good for you, I'll obliterate you first." Kaiser's dragon claw was wrapped in tremendous energy. He directly sent the hairpin flying with a single strike. With a slight sway of his body, he instantly crossed several thousand meters and arrived before Hong Lian. He viciously slashed at Hong Lian's chest. Squeak! The sharp claw rubbed against Hong Lian's 9 refined godfire feather raiment, producing an ear-piercing screech. Although Kaiser's attack was unable to destroy the 9 refined godfire feather raiment, the feather raiment that Hong Lian had not completely refined was unable to block the attack. Immediately, a force pierced through the 9 refined godfire feather raiment and struck Hong Lian. Spurt! Hong Lian vomited another mouthful of blood. The roaring flames around Hong Lian dispersed from Kaiser's attack. Killing intent filled Kaiser's eyes. He caught up to Hong Lian in a single instance and clenched his claw into a fist. He bellowed out, "Tyrant Dragon's Fist!" Bang! King's Punch, which contained the power to destroy the sky and earth, struck Red Lotus, causing her to spit out blood. Her face was pale, and the 9 refined, godly fire feather armor she wore almost fell off. Tyrant Dragon's Fist! Tyrant Dragon's Fist! The Tyrant Dragon's Fist! Afterwards, Kaiser constantly attacked Hong Lian. He used the Tyrant Dragon's Fist 8 times in a row on Hong Lian. The powerful force caused the sky to tremble. After enduring King's storm-like attacks, Red Lotus's aura immediately became extremely weak. At this moment, her eyes were tightly shut, and she was on the verge of death. However, at this moment, scarlet flames erupted from Hong Lian's body. They engulfed Hong Lian and set her ablaze. Ah! A clear cry of a phoenix rang out from within the crimson flames. The crimson flames churned unceasingly before transforming into a divine phoenix that let out a long cry towards the heavens. It was extraordinarily mighty. This is the innate ability of the divine phoenix clan, rebirth from flames. Kaiser's face immediately became ugly when he saw this. The main reason he didn't want to fight with Hong Lian was because the members of the divine phoenix clan had the innate ability to rise from the ashes. They could rise from the ashes immediately after death and return to their peak state. They were extremely difficult to kill and were almost immortal. The scarlet flames quickly dissipated, revealing Hong Lian's tall and slender figure. She gave off a vast and surging aura that was even stronger than before. After the rebirth, Honglian's wounds had completely healed. She had returned to her peak condition, and her strength had increased by a lot. The Divine Phoenix clan's rebirth from fire ability could be used 9 times in a row. After each rebirth from fire ability, their strength would increase by a few times. When they experienced the 9th rebirth from fire ability, their strength would increase by several times. However, this increase was only temporary and would not allow him to obtain this power forever. "You can't kill me." Honglian stared at Kaiser emotionlessly as she spoke extremely calmly. A vicious light constantly flickered through Kaiser's eyes. He snorted coldly. "If you were a rank 9 Phoenix, even if you've only just reached rank 9, I wouldn't be your opponent with the ability. It's a pity that you're still at rank 8. Even if you've been reborn 9 times, you still won't be my opponent." With that, Kaiser charged towards Honglian. He struck out with his full strength, heavily injuring Honglian again and forcing her to undergo a second rebirth. "I'll kill you every time you're reborn," Kaiser said through gritted teeth. With the Holy Emperor's strength, he was able to kill Honglian in one go. Honglian's gaze remained calm. Every time she was reborn from the ashes, her strength would increase slightly. Very soon, she was about to undergo her 3rd rebirth from the ashes. Noticing Honglian's calm gaze, King suddenly had a bad feeling. He thought, "It's rumored that the Divine Phoenix clan's rebirth from the ashes can be used 9 times in a row. Then after 9 times, will they die, or I can't keep tangling with her?" The light in Kaiser's eyes flickered, and he quickly made up his mind. He struck out with his full strength several times in a row, heavily injuring Honglian after the 3rd rebirth. Afterwards, he no longer remained. He merged with space and turned into a blur as he pursued in the direction that Jianshan had disappeared in. He vanished in a single moment. Red Lotus was still in the process of being reborn from the fire for the 4th time. She could not stop King, and when she was reborn, King had already disappeared from her sight. Honglian's face changed slightly. Without any hesitation, she immediately turned into a red streak of light and chased after Kaiser. Jianshan was now with Houston, hurrying along with him. Houston was a holy emperor at great perfection, only a step away from the Holy Emperor. His comprehension of space was not something that Jianshan could match, so he moved extremely quickly. In just a short amount of time, Houston had traveled several tens of thousand kilometers with Jianshan. They were getting closer and closer to Mercenary City. "Jianshan, you can't escape." Kaiser's furious roar rang out from behind. He was several times faster than Houston. "Oh no!" Houston's face changed slightly. Darkness attributed Saint Force radiated from his body, and his speed immediately skyrocketed. He had already used a secret technique to hurry along. However, he was still not faster than Kaiser. Kaiser caught up very quickly and stabbed his claw at Jianshan's back. However, at this moment, a white streak of light shot over with unbelievable speed. It directly shot past Jianshan and struck Kaiser's claw with great precision. Arg! Immediately, Kaiser produced a miserable cry. His claw that could fend off the Sacred Dragon's sword seemed as fragile as tofu before the white streak of light. A hole was punched through it without any effort. Chapter 10:14. Origin Energy. It's actually Origin Energy. This is strength that surpasses the Holy Emperor's. King was terrified. In front of this seemingly insignificant white light, for the first time, he felt that his life was being threatened. Kaiser could no longer pay attention to Jianshan. He even seemed to have forgotten about the intense pain in his arm. He stared in the direction of the white light sternly as his eyes were filled with fear. Although his strength was among the upper echelons of the Holy Emperors, Kaiser knew extremely well that he was as weak as a child before someone who had surpassed the Holy Emperor. This was because those who had surpassed the Holy Emperor were experts in a completely different domain. The power they used was not the Saint Force that regular experts used. Instead, it was Origin Energy that was on a higher level. I wonder which powerhouse is behind this. Can you show yourself? Suppressing the shock in his heart, Wang Xian vigilantly scanned the surroundings and asked in a deep voice. At the same time, ink-black dragon scales appeared on his body, enveloping him completely. Even Kaiser's body began to swell at a visible rate. Very soon, he had become a 10-meter-tall monster. Although he still had a human head, his 4 limbs had become sharp claws. 13 sharp spikes had sprouted from his back as well. Each spike was several meters long and flickered with cold light. Kaiser had transformed into his half-human, half-dragon form. This was his most powerful battle form. Jinshin and Houston had forgotten to run as well. They hovered in the air in shock as the words Kaiser had just said constantly echoed through their minds. Their hearts churned as they struggled to remain calm. Baddie, you're a baddie. You bullied Xiaoling's big brother and even beat him up like this. Xiaoling will definitely teach you a lesson for Big Brother. At this moment, a young girl's voice suddenly rang out. A girl who seemed to be around 11 or 12 silently appeared beside Jinshin. She stared furiously at the half-human, half-dragon Kaiser. Xiaoling did not hide herself this time, so Kaiser and Houston immediately discovered her as soon as she appeared. However, when they discovered that it was such a young girl, they both became stunned, but they returned to their senses very quickly. Their hearts were immediately filled with deep shock and disbelief because they had failed to discover when Xiaoling had appeared with their strength. Xiaoling, it's you. You've actually left Mercenary City. Jinshin stared at Xiaoling in surprise. His mind raced, and he immediately understood that the expert who had surpassed the Holy Emperor who had injured Kaiser before was Xiaoling. When she heard Jinshin's voice, the anger on Xiaoling's face immediately vanished. She looked at Jinshin in concern and said, "Big brother, Xiaoling can't just watch this baddie bully you. If Xiaoling doesn't do anything, this baddie will beat Big Brother to death." Although Master forbade Xiaoling from leaving Mercenary City back then, in order to save Big Brother, Master Xiaoling won't care, even if it's in the future. Kaiser heard everything Xiaoling had said, and a gleam of light immediately flashed through his eyes. He stared at Xiaoling in surprise and doubt as he cried out, "Are you the barrier spirit that protects Mercenary City? I never thought that the barrier spirit of Mercenary City can actually leave the protective barrier. It looks like the rumors aren't completely true." Houston also sighed in amazement as he stared at Xiaoling in a daze. In reality, Xiaoling was a spirit nurtured from the essence of the earth. She was not a so-called barrier spirit. She could only freely control the power of the protective barrier of Mercenary City. In the past, Xiaoling had been given the mission of guarding the seal beneath Mercenary City by the city master, Mo Tianyan. As a result, Xiaoling had never left Mercenary City all these years, which was why people mistakenly believed that she was a spirit born from the barrier. She was connected to the barrier and could never leave Mercenary City. Xiaoling's expression changed when she heard Kaiser's voice. She stared at Kaiser viciously with her innocent eyes and said angrily, "You baddie, you bullied Big Brother just then. Xiaoling will teach you a lesson in Big Brother's place." As she said that, Xiaoling casually waved her hand. A streak of white light suddenly appeared and shot toward Kaiser with lightning speed. This was origin energy that only experts who had surpassed the Holy Emperor could control. The origin energy from Xiaoling's hand did not create any earth-shaking disturbances, nor did it give off any terrifying ripples of energy. There was only a mysterious and profound presence. Origin energy was a completely new power. It had completely exceeded the knowledge of the people of the Tian-Yuan continent. Its power and terror could not be sensed from its appearance. Although Xiaoling had only casually waved her hand, Kaiser felt like he could not dodge it. He forcefully endured the attack of the origin energy. King's powerful physical defense was as weak as tofu in front of the origin energy. Wherever he was injured by the origin energy, the scales there shattered and turned into a pile of dust. His flesh was badly mangled. Arg! Kaiser produced a painful cry. The injuries from the origin energy were definitely not as simple as they seemed on the surface. Even someone as powerful as the Holy Emperor could not endure the excruciating pain. Is this the power of the origin? Jianshun felt a deep sense of curiosity as he stared at the streak of white light that had struck Kaiser. He could clearly sense the mysterious and profound presence from the origin energy. The origin energy from Shaoling is clearly different from the origin energy on Ruijin and the others. I feel like the origin energy from Shaoling is the purest, without any impurities, while the origin energy on Ruijin and the others' weapons possesses a powerful energy that belongs to this world, Jinshin thought. Origin energy. This is origin energy. What pure origin energy? Chapter 10:15. The half-human, half-dragon king clutched his wounds painfully. He could feel his flesh vanish at a visible rate from where the origin energy had struck him, causing his wounds to rapidly expand. The excruciating pain ravaged his nerves time and time again, causing his facial muscles to constantly twitch. Although the origin energy seemed simple and unadorned and did not possess any earth-shaking might, it was undeniably powerful and terrifying. It was not something a body of flesh and blood could resist. Once struck by origin energy, it would be so great that it could corrode everything in the world, reducing them to dust. Jinshin and Houston both stared at the rapidly expanding wounds in a daze. Their hearts churned as they were shocked by the strength of the origin energy. They had never thought that a powerful holy emperor would be so fragile before it. Suddenly, a furious roar was emitted from King's mouth. Immediately, a vast and surging energy surged out from King's body like a flood. At this moment, King had already used all the power within him to stop the remaining origin energy in his body. He wanted to wear it away. When a Saint Emperor erupted with all his strength, the disturbance was without a doubt earth-shaking. The space in a radius of several hundred kilometers constantly distorted before the supreme power. Pitch-black spatial cracks appeared everywhere, while the ground where Kaiser stood rapidly sank. It had been forcefully pushed down by the powerful energy. The sky darkened. Even the world paled in comparison to King's power. The energy of the world and the formless world force in a radius of several tens of thousands of kilometers was affected as well. They lost their usual docility and became violent. The supreme experts of the 10 protector clans hidden in various regions of the Tianyuan continent all emerged from seclusion and returned to the Tianyuan continent. They all sternly stared at King's location. In Chanyang Prefecture, the most senior member of the Zhu branch, Chanyang Zhu Xiao, stared into the distance with glowing eyes. He said with a deep voice, "Only a holy emperor can erupt with such a great disturbance. The holy emperor of the Beast God continent has actually come to our Tianyuan continent again. The holy emperor has already become an invincible existence in the world. Even across the Beast God continent and our Tianyuan continent, there are only 4 holy emperors, yet the holy emperor of the magical beasts is clearly using his full strength. Strange, just who is powerful enough to force the holy emperor into such a state." A great elder beside Chanyang Zhu Xiao said in thought. His face was filled with shock. The holy emperor of the magical beasts has definitely come for the winged tiger. The winged tiger is with Jinshin, and there are 2 experts with origin energy weapons protecting Jinshin. Is the holy emperor fighting with the 2 of them? It doesn't matter. Since they're fighting on our Tianyuan continent, we can't just sit by and watch. Let's go take a look first, Chanyang Qinyan said with a deep voice. With a wave of his hand, the space in front of him immediately ripped open. He wanted to create a space gate. However, the ripped space violently trembled before slowly closing up. The space gate did not form. Chanyang Qinyan frowned. They're fighting too intensely. They've affected the balance of space, so I can't create a space gate. Since we can't create a space gate, let's set it several tens of thousand kilometers away from them and fly over, a great elder suggested. Afterward, the great elders of the Chanyang Prefecture all left through space gates. They arrived several tens of thousand kilometers away from Jinshin and flew over. At the same time, the ancestors of the other 9 protector clans and a few ancient clans, as well as the holy emperor experts of the various organizations, all hurried in the direction of the battle. Kaiser used all the energy in his body to fend off the origin energy, but he was still unable to stop it from destroying his body. In the end, he had to wait until the origin energy ran out before he could stop his wounds from worsening. At that moment, King was drenched in sweat, battered, and exhausted. He was no longer as elegant as he used to be. On his nearly 10-meter-tall dragon body, there was an eye-catching half-meter-wide hole that was so terrifying, for tremendous presences flew over with lightning speed from afar. Blackfish, Ruijin, Honglian, and Lankiros hurried over from behind. Lankiros stood beside Kaiser, while Blackfish, Ruijin, and Honglian immediately stood in front of Jinshin. They all stared at the half-meter-wide hole in Kaiser's body in shock. I felt a pure presence of origin energy earlier. Kaiser, who injured you like this? Lankiros asked with a heavy voice. Kaiser stared at Xiao Ling in fright and said, "It's that girl. I never thought she would be the barrier spirit of Mercenary City." What? She's the spirit of Mercenary City's protective barrier? Lankiros was astounded. He could not help but cry out before immediately looking at Xiao Ling. When the Tiger Emperor Wukenli saw Spirity's appearance as a 12 or 13-year-old little girl, he was immediately surprised. He had only seen the barrier spirit of Mercenary City in the ancient records in the Beast God Hall. It had been left behind by the ancestors of the magical beasts. This was the first time he had seen the barrier spirit in person. However, he had never thought that the barrier spirit of Mercenary City would only be a 12-year-old girl. Didn't the ancient records say that the barrier spirit of Mercenary City is unable to leave Mercenary City? However, why has she left Mercenary City? Lankiros cried out softly. He was filled with doubt. Ruijin, Blackfish, and Honglian also stared at Xiao Ling. As soon as they thought about how the pure origin energy had come from the girl before them, the three of them became shocked. This was because they knew extremely well that only supreme experts who had surpassed the Holy Emperor could grasp origin energy. However, the girl before them, who only seemed to be 12 or 13, was actually an existence that had surpassed the Holy Emperor. Xiao Ling ignored everyone's shocked gazes. She stared at Lankiros and Kaiser furiously and said, "You're all bullying Big Brother. You're all bad people. Xiao Ling will definitely teach you a lesson and vent for Big Brother." With that, Xiao Ling swung her arm again and sent 2 strands of origin energy at the two of them. The 2 Holy Emperors' faces suddenly changed when they saw the origin energy that did not cause any disturbance. However, the 2 of them actually felt like they could not dodge the origin energy at the same time. It was as if the origin energy had locked onto their presences. No matter how they dodged, they would not be able to avoid being hit. Since we can't dodge, we can only fight to the death. Lankiros and Kaiser thought. They gritted their teeth and bellowed out at the same time. Terrifying ripples of energy surged out from their bodies as they used all their strength to block the incoming origin energy. The origin energy was not something that the Holy Emperor could withstand. It passed through their attacks like a hot knife through butter and directly pierced their bodies. Ark, Tiger Emperor, and King immediately let out miserable cries. The wounds on their bodies that had been pierced by origin energy were rapidly expanding at a rate visible to the naked eye. Their flesh was disappearing bit by bit. Xiao Ling suddenly looked into the distance and said angrily, "Humph, do you think that Xiao Ling won't be able to see you if you hide? You're even worse than the 2 of them. You actually worked with them to bully Big Brother. This time, Xiao Ling will teach you a harsh lesson. I won't let it go as easily as before." As soon as she finished speaking, another burst of essence energy shot out from little Ling's hand toward the empty space like a bolt of lightning. Ark! Immediately, another miserable cry rang out. The Path Lord of Carnal Desires suddenly appeared, and a fist-sized hole had appeared in his chest. His entire chest had been pierced, and the wound was still expanding. "As long as I don't harm your souls, you won't die." "Umph. Once Xiao Ling teaches you a harsh lesson, I'll capture you and hand you over to Big Brother." "Big Brother will definitely be very happy," said Xiao Ling. Afterwards, she sent out another 3 strands of origin energy towards the 3 holy emperor, adding another hole to their bodies. Run! Lankiros endured the pain and roared at Kaiser. Immediately, a bloody mist surged out of his body. By the time the mist dispersed, Lankiros was nowhere to be seen. Kaiser and the Path Lord of Carnal Desires both used secret techniques to escape when they saw that Lankiros had fled. After paying quite a heavy price, the two of them vanished in a single instance. Xiao Ling put her hands on her hips and said angrily, "With me, Xiao Ling, here. It's useless no matter where you run. Just watch how Xiao Ling captures you 3 baddies." Just when Xiao Ling was about to do something, Mercenary City, which was several tens of thousands of kilometers away, began to tremble violently. The entire city shook violently as if it was experiencing an earthquake. Thick cracks appeared on the ground of Mercenary City. Xiao Ling's innocent face suddenly changed. She cried out, "Oh no, there's an extremely terrifying expert attacking the seal right now." Xiao Ling no longer cared about the 3 fleeing people. Before she had even finished speaking, she had vanished. When she reappeared, she was already deep beneath Mercenary City. A huge seal was hidden deep beneath Mercenary City. Extremely few people knew about its existence. Throughout history, only Xiao Ling knew about it apart from the greatest human expert, Mo Tianyun, who had cast down the seal. Chapter 10:16. The seal that blocked the entrance to the Tianyuan continent was extremely unique. It was composed of white strands of light that were as thick as an arm. The strands of light crisscrossed together, forming a spider's web that lay in the depths of the ground. It radiated with a profound presence. This seal was actually constructed entirely from the power of the source origin. Below the seal was a huge, pitch-black hole. The hole was several thousand meters wide, and it was pitch black inside. Nothing could be seen, as if it was a door to hell. It gave off an eerie feeling, enough to make people's hairs stand on end. At this moment, the space within a dark cave began to distort intensely. Immediately, an incomparably powerful sword chi broke through the layers of darkness and appeared. It struck the seal with lightning-like speed. Boom! With a great boom, the huge sword chi struck the seal, immediately causing it to tremble violently. Powerful pulses of energy constantly shook the ground, affecting even Mercenary City above. The entire city shook violently, shocking countless people in the city. This extremely powerful sword chi was filled with pure origin energy. When it collided with the seal, it did not immediately dissipate. Instead, it charged forward like a bull against the cobweb-like seal, causing the seal to form a conical shape. Woo, the seal that Master cast down on the other side has already been destroyed. Only the seal remains. Whoa, it's all Xiao Ling's fault. It's all Xiao Ling's fault for not following Master's orders to leave Mercenary City. Otherwise, the seal wouldn't have been destroyed. Spirity wept as she appeared in front of the hammer-shaped cover. Her current expression was like that of a child who had done something wrong, filled with worry, fear, and deep regret. The seal on the other side has already been destroyed. This seal can't be destroyed, or the city that Master created after so much effort will be gone. If the city is gone, Master will definitely be very angry. Xiao Ling muttered to herself in a sobbing voice. Soon after, she gently pressed her palms against the seal. At that moment, the tremendous energy gathered beneath Mercenary City began to surge rapidly. It surged towards the seal like a vicious tide, where it was completely absorbed by the seal in the end. After absorbing so much energy, the seal immediately began to shine with a dazzling white light. The seal's power was rapidly increasing. Break! At the same time, an indistinct voice rang out from the pitch-black hole below the seal. It was impossible to tell whether the voice belonged to a man or a woman. The voice seemed to possess endless magic, constantly reverberating through the depths of the ground. The extremely powerful strand of sword chi that was locked in a stalemate with the seal immediately erupted with dazzling white light. Strands of sword chi that caused the world to tremble erupted, slamming against the seal with even more ferocity than before. They actually ended up in a stalemate with the support of the seal's reinforcements. Oh, this person is so powerful. Xiaoling could not help but sigh in amazement. A sliver of worry appeared on her face. Afterward, strands of pure origin energy surged out from Xiaoling's body, pouring into the seal to fend off the terrifying strand of sword qi. After receiving the support of Xiaoling's essence power, the sword qi that had been fighting equally with the seal was finally suppressed, and it began to slowly retreat. Seal breaker. The indistinct voice rang out from the pitch-black hole once again. A 4-foot-long sword shot out from the darkness with an earth-shaking might, heading toward the web-like seal with lightning speed. When the divine sword and the seal collided, there was no violent explosion as expected. It gave people the illusion that the thunderous sound was loud, but the raindrops were small. It was as if this earth-shattering sword was just a facade. However, in the next moment, the dazzling light of the seal began to rapidly dim. The final layer of defense that blocked the entrance to the world of Forsaken Saints actually showed signs of shattering. Oh no, what is this strange power? It's actually able to destroy Master's seal. Jian Shun cried out in surprise. Xiao Ling cried out. Her childish face immediately became nervous. Soon after, even more surging origin energy was poured into the seal, causing it to rapidly strengthen. At the same time, the tremendous amount of energy that had accumulated in the depths of Mercenary City surged into the seal at an even faster rate. Xiaoling had saved up all this energy over many years. It was used to maintain the seal on a daily basis. Now that the situation was dangerous, Xiaoling no longer cared about the consumption of the energy. The seal finally stabilized under Xiaoling's efforts. It began to use its full strength to fend off the mysterious expert hidden in the black hole. After the sword qi and the divine sword were in a deadlock with the seal for a while, the sword qi finally dissipated due to the exhaustion of its energy. Soon after, the 4-feet-long divine sword also let out a clear sword cry. The head of the sword turned into an afterimage as it flew into the black hole like lightning and disappeared. Xiaoling immediately let out a long sigh of relief when he saw that the expert from the world of Forsaken Saints had finally given up on destroying the seal. Some exhaustion appeared on her face. She had only maintained the seal for less than 10 minutes, but to Xiaoling, it was like she had fought an expert of the same level for 3 days and 3 nights. Xiaoling patted her chest as she stared at the black hole with lingering fear. She murmured, "How terrifying! How powerful! Those 2 attacks must have come from the same person. If I hadn't made it back in time, the seal that Master set up back then probably wouldn't have been able to withstand a single attack from that person." Suddenly, the space within the black hole distorted. Faintly, one could see a figure hiding in the darkness. That blurry figure carried an aura of disdain for the world. Although Xiao Ling possessed great strength, she was still a child at the end of the day. She immediately covered her mouth when she saw this, and could not help but take a few steps back. Fear filled her face. This seal can't stop me. Once my seal-breaking technique is perfected, the seal will be destroyed. That day is not far away, a voice said from the black hole. An ethereal voice came out of the black figure's mouth. Although the voice was calm and indifferent, it was filled with strong confidence. After saying that, the black figure slowly vanished. The depths of Mercenary City returned to its peaceful state. Xiaoling stared blankly at the pitch-black hole before her. It seemed like the gate to hell. A while later, she suddenly began to sob. Sob, 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 sob. "Master, where are you? Please come back quickly. Xiaoling is so scared." In the North Pole covered in ice and snow, a majestic, snow-white temple stood quietly. Inside the temple, in a secret room filled with cold air, a person covered in silver-white armor was sitting cross-legged in the middle of the room. Only a pair of closed eyes were exposed to the outside. At this moment, the tightly shut eyes of the person wearing the silver-white armor slowly opened. Immediately, a cold and indifferent female voice that was filled with surprise reverberated within the quiet secret room. What an astonishing prodigy! Not only have you reached such a high level of cultivation as an ordinary person in 800 years, but you've even created your own seal-breaking technique, which is a special battle skill for breaking seals. Looks like you'll be able to destroy the seal on the Tian-Yuan continent before long. I've observed you for 800 years. I wonder just what you'll achieve in the future. I really look forward to it. Sai, what a group of pitiful people. Jianshan, Houston, Ruijin, Blackfish, and Honglian still remained on the Tian-Yuan continent. They remained where they were, unable to calm themselves down. The three Holy Emperor experts had actually been forced to use a secret technique to flee by Shaoling so easily. This was the first time they had seen someone with strength that surpassed the Holy Emperor. They felt extremely shocked. I never thought that in this world without origin energy, there would actually be existences that surpassed the Holy Emperor. Ruijin sighed emotionally after a long while. Although he and Blackfish had already known about the existence of the barrier spirit when they first set foot in Mercenary City with Jianshan, the two of them had always believed that the barrier spirit only possessed the strength of the Holy Emperor at most. They had never thought that the barrier spirit of Mercenary City would actually be an existence that surpassed the Holy Emperor. To the two of them, those who had surpassed Saint Emperor were already invincible. Even in ancient times, there had only been 4 people who had surpassed Saint Emperor. The pale-faced Houston remained silent as he hovered beside Jianshan. However, Shaoling constantly referred to Jianshan as Big Brother. His heart churned. He had never thought that Jianshan would have such a close relationship with the barrier spirit of Mercenary City. It was an existence that had surpassed the Holy Emperor. Jianshan calmed down very soon. He looked in the direction of Mercenary City and said, Shaoling originally wanted to capture the Path Lord of Carnal Desires, the Tiger Emperor, and Kaiser, but she left in a hurry at the crucial moment. Has something happened in Mercenary City? Ruijin thought about it for a while with that and said, why don't we go to Mercenary City and have a look? However, after what the Earth Dragon did, violent streams of energy are everywhere. The space here still hasn't stabilized, so it's impossible to create a space gate. Let's fly over. Afterward, Ruijin directly took off with Jianshan. They flew toward Mercenary City with Honglian, Blackfish, and Houston. Soon after they left, the experts of the Protector clans and the Holy Emperor who had hurried over from all over the continent all arrived at the place where Shaoling had fought the 3 Holy Emperor. However, all they discovered was a mess. I can sense the existence of a mysterious power here. It seems to be extremely similar to the origin energy on the weapons of the 2 magical beasts, Changyang Qingyun said with a heavy voice. Something's not right. I can clearly sense that the remnant origin energy here is much purer than the origin energy on the weapons of the 2 magical beasts, Qing Chun calmly said. The pavilion master of the Pure Heart Pavilion, Wu Chenzi, said calmly. However, a gleam of light flickered in her eyes. She looked in the direction of Mercenary City and said, they're already heading towards Mercenary City. Why don't we follow them and take a look? Afterward, the Protector clans and the Holy Emperor continued to fly toward Mercenary City. Mercenary City was currently in an uproar. The violent tremors of Mercenary City earlier had alarmed everyone in the city. The streets and alleys were now filled with people. Everyone was pointing at the dense cracks on the ground, and the clamorous sounds of discussion could be heard without end. All the people who had been to Mercenary City knew about the existence of a protective force. The ground was countless times tougher than steel. Even saint rulers would not be able to leave behind a single mark on it with their full strength. However, at this moment, such a sturdy ground actually cracked open with so many thick cracks. This made everyone feel disbelief. Chapter 10:17. The people hovering in the air above the city were all the upper echelon of the city. They were all elders, and the weakest among them was a saint ruler. First elder, what's going on here? Our mercenary city is protected by the barrier. It's indestructible, so why has it become like this? Could it be that the barrier protecting my mercenary city has already disappeared? The upper echelon of Mercenary City all discussed as they stared at the thick cracks that covered the city below. They were all filled with doubt and curiosity about the changes to the city, as well as some unknown fear and panic. The Grand Elder of Mercenary City stared at the thick cracks that covered the streets sternly. He was also at a loss. He had no idea what had happened to the city and why this had happened. Suddenly, Tianjin seemed to realize something. A gleam of light flashed through his eyes as he thought, "Has something happened to the barrier spirit?" Tianjin's face immediately became rather sunken as soon as he thought of this possibility. The barrier spirit had been left behind by Mo Tunyun in the past, so its existence was extremely important to Mercenary City. It was the true protector of Mercenary City. If something really happened to the barrier spirit, it would be an extremely heavy blow to Mercenary City. It's a pity that I can't communicate with the barrier spirit, so I have no idea what has happened to Mercenary City. It would be great if Jianshin was here. However, a great battle has just erupted in the direction of the Cross Mountains. The Holy Emperor of the Magical Beasts has taken part, so it looks like the two magical beasts beside Jianshin have clashed with the Holy Emperor of the Beast God Continent again. If that's really the case, Jianshin should be nearby as well, Tianjin thought. When he sensed the battle in the Cross Mountains before, he wanted to go and take a look, but he could not do anything about the sudden upheaval in Mercenary City, forcing him to stay behind. At this moment, a few tremendous presences appeared outside Mercenary City. They flew in the direction of the city with lightning speed. Tianjin's eyes narrowed, and he suddenly looked in the direction of the presences. He could not help but smile. Jianshin sure has come at the right time. I just happen to need him to communicate with the barrier spirit and see what has happened to Mercenary City. Jianshin, Houston, Ruijin, Blackfish, and Honglian flew over from afar. Their gazes became rather mixed when they saw the huge barrier above Mercenary City. Houston, Ruijin, Blackfish, and Honglian all showed a sliver of respect. This was respect for the strong. This was because they all knew that the girl who had surpassed the Holy Emperor was the spirit of the barrier up ahead. Jianshin did not go into detail about Xiao Ling's true identity. In his opinion, it did not matter whether Xiao Ling was the essence of the earth or the barrier spirit. Mercenary City is in a state of panic right now. It seems like something big has really happened here. Jianshin discovered the abnormalities of Mercenary City from afar, and a sliver of worry immediately appeared on his face. Very soon, Jianshin's group gathered with the elders of Mercenary City. They exchanged some pleasantries before getting to the main topic. Senior Tianjin, may I ask what has happened to Mercenary City? Why has it become like this? Jianshin looked at the panicked Mercenary City and asked with a heavy voice. We don't know what has happened either. If we want to know, we can only ask the barrier spirit. Jianshin, you have a close relationship with the barrier spirit of our Mercenary City. I hope you can communicate with the barrier spirit and ask what has happened to our Mercenary City, Tianjin said sternly. I'll try, Jianshin replied. However, he felt a sliver of uneasiness for some reason because he thought of some secret matters that Mo Tianyun had told him in the past. Afterwards, Jianshin gently called out Xiao Ling's name a few times, but he received no response this time. Jianshin became even more solemn. Now, he was more and more certain that his guess was probably correct. Something had happened to Mercenary City for no reason, coupled with Xiao Ling's loss of composure earlier, which made him think of the seal below Mercenary City. Something had probably happened. Senior Tianjin, there's nothing I could do this time. Jianshin was rather dejected. His face was filled with worry. He also felt deeply worried for Xiao Ling's safety. Sigh. Tianjin let out a long sigh. He raised his head to look at the huge barrier that still existed in the sky, and his brows were tightly furrowed. Mercenary City had gone through countless years of ups and downs since it had been founded, but nothing like what had happened today had ever happened. The light in Jianshin's eyes flickered. He hesitated over whether he should tell Tianjin and the others about the seal so that they could be prepared. At this moment, an invisible force suddenly appeared around Jianshin. Before Jianshin could react, it directly bound Jianshin tightly and dragged him to the ground with lightning speed. Jianshin, Ruijin cried out. He immediately chased after Jianshan as a blur in an attempt to pull him back. However, Jianshan fell extremely quickly. Even with Ruijin's strength, he was unable to save him in time. In an instant, Jianshan was dragged to the ground by the invisible force. Afterward, under everyone's dumbfounded gazes, he directly burrowed into the ground and vanished. He did not leave a single trace on the ground. Ruijin, Blackfish, Honglian, and Houston's faces all changed when they saw this. They looked at each other before descending to the ground at the same time. They wanted to blast open the ground and rescue Jianshan. Please wait. Tianjin stopped Ruijin and the others. He said, "There's no need to worry. My mercenary city is protected by the barrier spirit, so it's impossible for outsiders to harm Jianshan here. Jianshan's relationship with the barrier spirit is quite deep, so I'm guessing that it's very likely that the barrier spirit has taken Jianshan underground." With that, Ruijin, Blackfish, Honglian, and Houston immediately calmed down. They hovered in the air again and waited for Jianshan to emerge. Jianshan was constantly dragged down by a mysterious force. All the soil he encountered along the way was pushed to the sides, preventing any dirt from staining Jianshan's body. Jianshan had already experienced this once. He knew that this was Xiaoling's doing, so he remained very calm. He allowed the force to envelop his body and did not resist. Very soon, Jianshan arrived at the depths of the ground. All he could see was darkness. It was so dark that he could not even see his own fingers. Even with Jianshan's eyesight, he could not see anything clearly. Jianshan subconsciously extended his divine sense. However, even with his powerful divine sense, he could only extend it to a distance of less than a kilometer. There was a mysterious force suppressing the power of his divine sense. However, with his divine sense, Jianshan knew that he was currently in a huge space deep underground. The energy here is a lot thinner than the last time I was here. Jianshan was secretly surprised. He could still clearly remember that when Xiaoling had brought him here last time, the energy here was so dense that it had almost turned into liquid. Only a few years had passed since then, and the energy had become so thin. The rate of depletion had reached an astonishing level. At this moment, a ball of white light suddenly appeared in this dark world, illuminating this dark world. Xiaoling. Jianshan immediately cried out when he saw the ball of white light. The ball of white light came from Xiaoling's body. At this moment, Xiaoling's body was extremely illusory, like a figure formed from light. The current Xiaoling was no longer as lively as before. There were 2 clear lines of tears on her cute and childish little face. Her face was full of fear, as if she had been frightened by something. Seeing Xiaoling like this, Jianshan felt an inexplicable pain in his heart. He asked with concern, "Xiaoling, what happened to you? What happened?" "Wah!" Suddenly, Xiaoling burst into tears. She threw herself into Jianshan's arms and cried loudly. Her arms tightly hugged Jianshan. "Xiaoling, be a good girl. Don't cry. Tell Big Brother what happened first." Jianshan hugged Xiaoling's petite body and comforted her softly. Although Xiaoling's body was formed from energy, this energy was almost solid. Thus, when Jianshan hugged Xiaoling's body, it felt no different than hugging a person made of flesh and blood. The only difference was that Xiaoling's body did not have any warmth. Big Brother, Xiaoling is so scared. Xiaoling is so scared. Master, where are you? Come back quickly. Xiaoling is really scared." Xiaoling cried in Jianshan's arms. She was quite frightened. Seeing Xiaoling's tear-stained face, Jianshan felt pity for her. He softly comforted, "Xiaoling, don't be scared. Big Brother is here. Don't worry, Big Brother will protect you." Jianshan comforted Xiaoling for a long time before finally calming her down. He then asked, "Xiaoling, tell Big Brother honestly. Is there a problem with the seal?" Xiaoling wiped away her tears and nodded firmly. She said, "Yes, Big Brother. A person has escaped from the seal." Xiaoling suddenly stopped talking. She immediately covered her mouth with her hand and mumbled, "You can't. Xiaoling can't say it. Master said that Xiaoling can't tell anyone." Jianshan smiled. "Xiaoling, Big Brother has seen your master in the past. Your master has already told Big Brother everything here. There's a seal in the depths of Mercenary City. It seals the entrance to the world of Forsaken Saints. Is Big Brother right? Xiaoling stared at Jianshun with her bright and innocent eyes. She nodded her head firmly, which was equivalent to acknowledging Jianshun's words. Xiaoling, even your master has told Big Brother everything, so you shouldn't keep it a secret like Big Brother. Be good and tell Big Brother everything, all right? Jianshun said, all right, but Big Brother, you have to promise that you won't tell anyone. Master forbade me from telling anyone about this back then, Xiaoling said seriously. Jianshun nodded and said nothing. Xiaoling told Jianshun everything that had happened. She did not hide anything at all. When Jianshun learned that a supreme expert from the world of Forsaken Saints was attacking the seal, his face immediately became extremely ugly. Xiaoling, just how powerful is the person who attacked the seal from the world of Forsaken Saints? Can you beat him? Jianshun asked nervously. At that moment, he felt like his heart was about to jump out of his throat. Chapter 10:18. Jianshun was astounded when he heard Xiaoling's explanation. Xiaoling was a supreme expert who had surpassed the Holy Emperor. With her strength, the seal that Tangyun had cast down in the past, and the tremendous energy that had accumulated in the depths of Mercenary City over countless years, she had barely managed to block the attack of the foreign expert. Just how terrifying was the person who had attacked the seal? Jianshun immediately became worried after learning about what had happened in Mercenary City. He was basically certain that the person who had attacked the seal was stronger than the Holy Emperor, which made Jianshun extremely stern. The world of Forsaken Saints had already given birth to people who surpassed the Holy Emperor, so there were definitely a few people who had surpassed the Holy Emperor as well. There were definitely quite a few experts who had reached the level of the Holy Emperor as well. On the other hand, of the four supreme experts of the ancient times, the war god of the 100 races, Ergens, had died in battle. The number one expert of the human race, Tangyun, and the god of the beast race, the winged tiger god, had both disappeared. Although the god of the sea race was still alive, only his soul had survived. His strength was far from what it had been at his peak. As for the Holy Emperor, there were only a few of them, even if all the experts from the three races were added together. How was it possible for them to stop the terrifying invasion of the world of Forsaken Saints with that amount of strength? Xiaoling, if you were to clash with the person who attacked the seal, would you be able to stop him? Jianshun stared at Xiaoling closely. In this world, only Xiaoling possessed strength that surpassed the Holy Emperor. Xiaoling shook her head without any hesitation. Big Brother, Xiaoling definitely won't be able to defeat that person. Xiaoling thinks that person is at late returnance at the very least, or even reciprocity. Returnance? Origin? Hearing these unfamiliar words for the first time, Jianshun was stunned. He asked with a serious expression, Xiaoling, are the returnance and origin the realms above the Holy Emperor? Yes, Master told me all this in the past. Master said that the saint ruler of the Tianyuan continent was the Holy Emperor. The Holy Emperor was its sainthood, and above sainthood was the origin realm. However, the origin realm also has three minor realms, which are receival, returnance, and reciprocity. Each minor realm has 3 levels, Xiaoling explained. So above the Holy Emperor is the origin realm. Jianshun came to a sudden realization. His expression changed as he asked Xiaoling, Xiaoling, what level have you reached now? Big Brother, Xiaoling is only at early returnance. I can't defeat that person at all, Xiaoling pitifully replied. She felt wronged. Jianshun fell silent. Xiaoling's explanation allowed him to understand the strength of the world of Forsaken Saints even more clearly. Experts who had surpassed the Holy Emperor were at receival, while those who had surpassed the Holy Emperor were at returnance. However, the person who had attacked the seal was so powerful that it was extremely likely that he had reached reciprocity. This filled him with deep shock. In ancient times, Tangyun had once entered the world of Forsaken Saints alone and killed over 20 receival experts who had surpassed the Holy Emperor, as well as 3 returnance experts who had surpassed the Holy Emperor. According to his guesses, it was extremely likely that Mo Tianyun was at returnance or reciprocity. Yet now, a supreme expert who could rival Mo Tianyun had actually appeared in the world of Forsaken Saints. This made Jianxun feel extremely pressured. After bidding farewell to Shaoling, Jianxun returned to the surface with a heavy heart. Tianjian, Ruijin, and the others continued to hover in the air. Aside from them, there were several dozen experts from the 10 protector clans, as well as many experts from the Holy Emperor who belonged to the various organizations. These people had all been alarmed by the presence of the ruler of the Beast God continent, so they were all gathered in Mercenary City. The group of elders behind Tianjian had decreased by quite a lot. Many Saint Ruler elders have been sent to the surroundings of Mercenary City to maintain order in the city. At the same time, they came up with a random reason to explain what had happened in the city. Look, Jianxun has come out. As soon as Jianxun appeared on the ground, he was immediately discovered by everyone. They all descended from the sky and arrived by Jianxun's side. Jianxun, are you fine? Ruijin was the first to ask. His face was filled with concern. Although he had not known Jianxun for very long, Jianxun would affect his chances of meeting his clansmen in the future. As a result, aside from Tianjian and Houston, probably only Ruijin and Honglian cared about Jianxun's life the most. Jianxun, what did the barrier spirits say to you? Have you investigated why something like this has happened to our mercenary city? Tianjian also asked eagerly. The experts of the protector clans were slightly surprised by Tianjian's question. Their gazes toward Jianxun immediately flickered with light. Chanyang Shoten of Chanyang Prefecture was actually connected to the barrier spirit of Mercenary City. This was extremely bad news to them. As for the elders of the Chanyang clan, they all faintly smiled after making some guesses. They looked at Jianxun with a slight sense of pride. Jianxun did not immediately answer Tianjian's question. He began to hesitate with a sunken face as he considered whether he should tell everyone about this or not. A while later, Jianxun finally made up his mind. He said, Senior Tianjian, this is a matter of great importance. Can we find a place where we can talk in private? Tianjian also realized the severity of the situation when he saw how stern Jianxun was. He immediately took Jianxun to an independent space in Mercenary City without any hesitation. Afterward, Jianxun told Tianjian everything he knew about the world of Forsaken Saints and everything he had learned from Shaoling, including how he had met Mo Tianyun's soul. He only hid the matter of Yinyang's Saint Rock. After learning about the world of Forsaken Saints from Jianxun, Tianjian became stunned on the spot. He was unable to return to his senses even after quite a while. The existence of the world of Forsaken Saints was just too shocking to Tianjian. Even with his mental fortitude, he struggled to remain calm. He was speechless from shock. Tianjian finally returned to his senses after quite a while. He sucked in a deep breath and slowly suppressed his shock. He stared at Jianxun in interest and asked with a slightly trembling voice, Jianxun, is what you said true? Is there really a tunnel that leads to the world of Forsaken Saints hidden beneath Mercenary City? Was the sudden tremor of Mercenary City earlier because a supreme expert from the world of Forsaken Saints, someone who's even stronger than the Holy Emperor, was attacking the seal? It's absolutely true, Jianxun sternly replied. Although he really wanted to keep the matter of the world of Forsaken Saints a secret, so as to prevent the Tianyuan continent from falling into a panic once the news spread, he could no longer keep it a secret now that the situation had developed. Tianjian's expression rapidly changed. He became extremely ugly. He said with a deep voice, I need to inform the 10 protector clans about this matter as soon as possible so that we can come up with a plan. Jianxun, come with me as well. Tianjian left with Jianxun in a hurry. After leaving the independent space, Tianjian immediately found the people from the protector clans. He sternly invited them to a meeting in Mercenary City. Even Ruijin, Honglian, Blackfish, and Houston were invited. Honglian and Houston did not go with them because they were recovering. Instead, under the arrangements of the elders of Mercenary City, they went to heal by themselves. Only Ruijin and Blackfish went with them. Several elders who had reached the level of the Holy Emperor and several dozen experts from the Protector clans gathered in a majestic hall in Mercenary City. Tianjin's face was extremely sunken the entire time, leaving all the experts present confused aside from Jianshan. They had no idea what had happened for the Grand Elder of Mercenary City to act like this. Tianjin did not beat around the bush. He directly cut to the chase and told everyone everything he had learned from Jianshan about the world of Forsaken Saints. He gave a detailed explanation of the strength of the world of Forsaken Saints. All the experts present became dumbfounded after learning about the world of Forsaken Saints. Disbelief filled their faces. The information they had learned from Tianjin was like a bolt from the blue to them, stunning them all. Grand Elder, what did you say? There's a seal beneath Mercenary City that seals the entrance to another world? Great Elder, is what you said true? Does the world of Forsaken Saints really exist? Is the world of Forsaken Saints really that powerful? Grand Elder, aren't you exaggerating a little too much? Let's not even talk about whether the world of Forsaken Saints really exists. Just over 20 experts who have surpassed the Holy Emperor and 3 existences who have surpassed the Holy Emperor are already shocking enough. Yet all these powerful existences have died to Mo Tianyin's hands. I find this hard to believe. Grand Elder, may I ask where you obtained this information? After a moment of silence, an uproar ensued. Whether it was the Protector clans or the experts from the Holy Emperor, they all voiced their doubts. Tianjin's words were just too exaggerated. No one actually believed him. Everyone, please be quiet. Tianjin raised his hand to silence the discussion before pointing at Jianshan beside him. He said, I've also heard about the world of Forsaken Saints from my friend Jianshan. Jianshan's understanding of the world of Forsaken Saints far surpasses mine. If you have any doubts, please ask Jianshan. What? The information about the world of Forsaken Saints actually came from Jianshan? Ha 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 ha. Grand Elder, aren't you treating this like a joke? How can you believe something so absurd so easily? A ruddy old man laughed aloud. He did not believe the information at all. Jianshan glanced at the old man. He recognized him. He was a great elder of the Yuan sect. That's right, First Elder. How can we believe such ridiculous words so casually? It's definitely fake. Otherwise, why wouldn't our Protector family have any records of such a huge matter? Another great elder from the Protector family spoke. The pavilion master of the Pure Heart Pavilion, Wichenzi, clasped her hands at Jianshan and said, Jianshan shouldn't be someone who likes to lie. However, the matter of the world of Forsaken Saints is just too shocking after all. May I ask if you have any evidence to prove the existence of the world of Forsaken Saints? Or would you like to take us to the seal beneath Mercenary City to verify this matter? The Protector clans had existed since ancient times. Their history was even longer than Mo Tianyin's, so they were extremely confident that they would have records of anything major that happened in this world. It was impossible for there to be no records of something as major as the world of Forsaken Saints, so they did not believe in the world of Forsaken Saints. Chapter 1019. That's right. Brother Jianshan, why don't you take us to the depths of Mercenary City to take a look at the seal so that we can confirm whether it's true or not? Otherwise, it really will be very difficult for us to believe you, said a middle-aged man. The person who spoke was a middle-aged man with a striking appearance. He did not belong to the Protector clans, but he was the ancestor of an ancient clan. He was extremely powerful, so he was renowned even among the Protector clans. Jianshan calmly stood beside Tianjin. He was not surprised by the doubts of the people, because this was completely within his expectations. The matter regarding the world of Forsaken Saints was just far too shocking. There had never been any news regarding the world of Forsaken Saints on the Tianyuan continent, so anyone who suddenly heard about it would find it hard to believe. If the person who told him about the world of Forsaken Saints back then was not Mo Tianyin, but a child who was much younger than him, Jianshan would not have believed it either. He would have treated it all as a joke and laughed it off. Jianshan calmly glanced past everyone. After learning about the world of Forsaken Saints, Jianshan did not see any of them become stern at all. Instead, They all acted like they did not care at all. Some of them even sneered. None of them actually cared about the world of Forsaken Saints. Jianshun could not help but gently sigh inside. He shook his head and said, "Sorry, I can't take you to the depths of the seal. Anyway, I've told you everything about the world of Forsaken Saints. It's up to you whether you believe me or not." The depths of Mercenary City were Shaoling's territory. Without Shaoling's permission, even experts like the Holy Emperor could not enter. Jianshun did not even need to think to know that it was impossible for Shaoling to take them to the depths of the seal. The matter regarding the world of Forsaken Saints really is a bunch of nonsense. Jianshun, what are you trying to do by making up such an exaggerated story to try and fool us? A great elder of the Yuan sect growled. He was rather aggressive. Jianshun had some grievances with the Yuan sect, so he obviously would not be polite to the people of the Yuan sect. He immediately stared at the elder coldly and coldly said, "You will find out in the future whether the matter regarding the world of Forsaken Saints was made up by me, Jianshun." The meeting dispersed very quickly. The people of the Protector clans all left Mercenary City and returned to their clans. They had originally been drawn over by the battle between the Holy Emperor of the Magical Beasts, but after what had happened to Mercenary City, none of them were in the mood to pay attention to the matters regarding the Holy Emperor of the Magical Beasts. In particular, the unbelievable story that Jianshun had told them about the world of Forsaken Saints had disturbed their thoughts. Although none of them believed in the existence of the world of Forsaken Saints, they had firmly committed the name to their minds. In particular, they were amazed by the fact that the world of Forsaken Saints possessed over 20 experts who had surpassed the Holy Emperor in ancient times. Although they knew that all of this could be fake, over 20 existences who had surpassed the Holy Emperor was a great deterrent. Jianshun was sent to a secret room by Tianjin to heal, while Tianjin and the several experts of the Holy Emperor of Mercenary City gathered in the floating Divine Hall. "Grand Elder, do you really believe Jianshun's words? Is there really a huge seal hidden beneath our Mercenary City? If the world of Forsaken Saints really does exist and has been sealed in the depths of Mercenary City, then logically speaking, the City Lord should have left behind some information so that the future generations could be on guard against it. Why did he hide this matter?" The elders of Mercenary City all expressed their doubts. They also found it very difficult to believe that the world of Forsaken Saints existed. Tianjin stood in the center of the hall with his arms crossed. His brows were tightly furrowed as he said in thought, "It's indeed difficult to accept that such a major matter has occurred so suddenly. But if that's not the case, how do we explain the sudden tremors of Mercenary City?" And Jianshun is not a liar. Coupled with how good his relationship with the Barrier Spirit is, I think the matter of the world of Forsaken Saints is probably true. The elders of Mercenary City immediately became stern when they heard Tianjin's analysis. One of them said, with a heavy voice, "If this matter is true, what power does our Tianyuan continent have to stop the invasion of the world of Forsaken Saints?" According to Jianshun's description of the world of Forsaken Saints, even if we work together with the Tianyuan continent, the Beast God continent, the Sea Race, and the 100 Races, we won't be their opponent. After all, it's not the ancient times anymore. We no longer have 4 supreme experts who have surpassed the Holy Emperor and many other Holy Emperor experts. If the world of Forsaken Saints really invades, our Tianyuan continent probably won't be able to stop them at all, another elder said. His face was very ugly. Tianjin sank into his thoughts. He slowly made his way to the entrance of the hall and raised his head to look at the sky. He murmured, "The war god of the 100 Races has reappeared on the Tianyuan continent in ancient times, and even the god of the Beast God continent, the winged tiger, has been reborn. Poseidon is still alive, yet a genius like Jianshun has appeared on our Tianyuan continent. Have they all been born out of calamity? Have they all been born at the same time to stop the world of Forsaken Saints?" Only the City Lord knew about the world of Forsaken Saints back then. The City Lord also wrote down a law in the laws of the elders of Mercenary City. If we encountered the winged tiger in the future, we had to assist it before it matured. He was not worried about the winged tiger harming the Tianyuan continent at all. Did the city lord calculate that the moment the winged tiger appeared would be the moment the seal of the world of Forsaken Saints was broken? If it's really like that, then the city lord's abilities back then have probably reached a heaven-defying level long ago. It's far beyond what we can understand. Suddenly, Tianjin looked at the elders behind him and said, "Whether the matter of the world of Forsaken Saints is true or not, don't leak it, or it'll probably cause a great panic on the Tianyuan continent." Milky white light illuminated the gloomy room in a silent, cold room. Jianshan sat in the center of the room as he healed his wounds with radiant saint force. Although Jianshan had been heavily injured in the battle earlier, he made a full recovery in an extremely short amount of time with the recovery of the chaotic body and radiant saint force. After making a full recovery, Jianshan slowly opened his eyes. He immediately took out the divine hall of the 8 wastelands from his space ring. The divine hall of the 8 wastelands had shrunk to the size of a fist. However, the majestic divine hall had become extremely damaged, having lost its former majesty. Jianshan stared at the damaged divine hall of the 8 wastelands with a pained expression. Although he had only obtained the divine hall of the 8 wastelands for a short period of time, it had provided him with an extremely great assistance. It was exactly because of the existence of the divine hall that he dared to look down on the protector clans of the Tianyuan continent. The divine hall of the 8 wastelands hasn't dispersed. It's actually repairing itself, but it's very slow. At this rate, it won't be able to make a full recovery without several decades or even over a century. Jianshan stared at the divine hall of the 8 wastelands as he murmured to himself. Afterward, he stowed the divine hall of the 8 wastelands back into his space ring. He knew that he would not be able to use the divine hall of the 8 wastelands for a very long period of time in the future. Afterward, Jianshan took out the Saint artifact. Although it had not been damaged after taking on Kaiser's attacks a few times, clear marks had been left behind. The damage was basically negligible compared to the divine hall of the 8 wastelands. At the same time, the Saint artifact had the ability to repair itself, so it would return to its perfect state before long. The Saint artifact really is much tougher than the divine hall of the 8 wastelands. If the Holy Emperor wanted to destroy the Saint artifact, he would need to expend a lot of effort. It's not like the divine hall of the 8 wastelands, which was destroyed with just a few hits. However, the only flaw of the Saint artifact is that its attacks are just too weak. If I come across a Holy Emperor, I won't be able to enter the Saint artifact at all, or I'll just be sending myself to my death, murmured Jianshan. Although the Saint artifact's defense was astonishing, it was still an artifact after all. It would not be able to escape from a Holy Emperor. If the Saint artifact ended up in the hands of a Holy Emperor, it would be destroyed one day. Jianshan sank into his thoughts as he held the Saint artifact in his hand. He murmured, "I've already told the 10 protector clans about the world of Forsaken Saints, but they don't believe it at all. They think I'm lying, making up a story to fool them. Sai, it looks like it's basically impossible to convince them that the world of Forsaken Saints really exists right now. But even if they do believe that the world of Forsaken Saints really exists, what can they do? The world of Forsaken Saints has already given birth to supreme experts who are even more powerful than Shaoling. They definitely have receival experts as well. The Holy Emperor probably has quite a few of them as well. They're not people this world can fend off. The people of this world are just too weak. The matter at hand right now is to increase the overall strength of this world, but the only way to increase their strength in a short amount of time is to refine the Yin-Yang Saint Rock. It's exactly because of the existence of the Yin-Yang Saint Rock that it's much more difficult for people to break through than before. According to what Senior Mo Tianyun said in the past, if the Yin-Yang Saint Rock were to disappear, the order and laws of the world would return to how they were in ancient times. All the 9th heavenly layer and great perfection Holy Emperor experts would be able to reach the Holy Emperor level in an extremely short amount of time. There would even be many new saint rulers and Holy Emperors. It's a pity that the energy in the Yin-Yang Saint Rock is just too great. I can't absorb it with my current strength. According to the sword spirits, I'll probably need to reach the 5th layer of the chaotic body and the heavenly enchantress to absorb the energy. As soon as he thought of the heavenly enchantress, Jinshin could not help but think of the erotic scene he had done with her in the past. His expression immediately became mixed. If he wanted to absorb the energy from the yin-yang Saint Rock, he needed to dual cultivate with the heavenly enchantress. Only then would he be able to neutralize the extreme yin and yang energies. Chapter 10:20. After making a full recovery, Jinshin left the secret room. Ruijin and Blackfish were already waiting outside. Jinshin's heart immediately warmed when he saw how Ruijin and Blackfish were still by his side. He clasped his hands at the two of them and said, "Senior Ruijin, Senior Blackfish, sorry for making you wait. It doesn't matter. The two of us have nothing to do here anyway. Since we have nothing to do, we came to where you are in seclusion to prevent anything from happening to you again," Heiyu said with a chuckle. Ruijin stared at Jinshin for a while before asking, "Jinshin, is the matter regarding the world of Forsaken Saints true?" Blackfish stopped smiling when he heard Ruijin's sudden question. He quickly became stern. Jinshin nodded. "Yes, it's completely true. The seal to the world of Forsaken Saints does exist in the depths of Mercenary City. And the trembling of Mercenary City is because the experts from the world of Forsaken Saints are attacking the seal." Ruijin became stern. He stopped talking about the matter regarding the world of Forsaken Saints and said, "Jinshin, let's go." Afterward, Jinshin went to see Tai Ta. After chatting with him for a while, he left the independent space with Ruijin and Blackfish, returning to Mercenary City. Jinshin did not disturb Ming Dong as he was still at a critical juncture in his breakthrough. When Jinshin, Ruijin, and Blackfish returned to Mercenary City, the city had already returned to normal. The cracks on the ground had been repaired by the protective energy, so no one seemed to be able to connect it to the damaged city from before. An elder of Mercenary City casually found a reason to announce the reason for the tremors in Mercenary City. It quelled the fear and doubt of countless mercenaries in Mercenary City. Jinshin found Honglian and Houston under the lead of Ruijin and Blackfish. The two of them were recuperating in the same inn. "Greetings to Uncle Shio, Senior Honglian." Jinshin clasped his hands politely as soon as he saw the two of them. He quickly glanced past the two of them and discovered that Houston was still heavily injured. His face was pale, while Honglian seemed fine, but she was clearly exhausted. Jinshin could also sense that Honglian's presence had become much weaker. Honglian was a phoenix that had lived for several thousand years, but she only seemed to be in her 20s. When she heard how Jinshin had addressed her, Honglian immediately widened her eyes. She stared at Jinshin viciously and said with some anger, "What's senior? Jinshin, am I that old?" Jinshin was stunned when he heard that. He had never thought that Honglian would react so strongly when he called her senior. Ruijin smiled when he saw how Honglian had reacted. He said, "Honglian, when did you become like a little girl? That's not like you at all." Honglian gently stroked her hair before returning to her room. She sat down on the bed and stared at Jinshin with a strange light in her eyes. She said, "Jinshin, I've paid quite the price to save you this time. I've been reborn 4 times in a row, which has made me enter a period of weakness for 40 years. Tell me, what treasure will you give me to make up for my losses?" Honglian was serious. She did not seem to be joking at all. She was extremely serious. "Jinshin will definitely remember Senior's kindness of saving my life. If I have the chance in the future, I will definitely repay you several times over." Jinshin clasped his hands without any hesitation. Ruijin walked over and patted Jinshin's shoulder. He gently smiled. "Jinshin, Honglian is just joking with you. Don't take it seriously." Honglian acted like she did not hear Ruijin's words at all. She frowned and glared at Jinshin with some displeasure. "I told you not to call me senior. Why won't you listen? Jinshin, listen up. You're not allowed to call me senior in the future. Just call me by my name, Honglian." "Yes." Jinshin clasped his fist at Honglian. After a moment of thought, he said, "Honglian, Uncle Shio, you're injured. Why don't you go to the artifact space? I'll get the artifact spirit to heal you." Uncle Shio's eyes lit up when he heard that. He coughed twice and said in a rather weak voice, "That's great. With the help of the Saint artifact of the Radiant Saint Master Union, I'll be able to recover from my injuries that would take several decades at the very least." Afterwards, Jianshan directly took out the Saint artifact and sent Uncle Xiao into the artifact space. Afterward, he looked at Honglian and said, "Honglian, why don't you go to the artifact space to heal as well?" Honglian glanced at Jianshan before closing her eyes and meditating. She said, "My body is weak because of the aftereffects of my rebirth. My strength has fallen from the great perfection of the Holy Emperor to the fifth heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor. It's not something that can be healed by a Saint artifact. It can only be slowly healed by time. Of course, if there's an extremely precious treasure of the world, it can shorten the time I'm weak." "A treasure of the world? Does dragon saliva grass count as one?" Jianshan asked eagerly. Honglian gently shook her head. "Dragon saliva grass can only be regarded as a heavenly resource. It's nowhere near an extremely precious treasure of the world." Jianshan felt rather disappointed. He knew that Honglian was a powerful helper that Ruijin had found. If she could recover her strength, he would have gained another powerful helper. "Master, the holy water of the Spirit Sea can help this little phoenix recover its strength." At this moment, the sword spirit's voices rang out in Jianshan's head. Jianshan rejoiced inside. He immediately sent his consciousness into his sea of consciousness and saw the two streaks of light, one violet and one azure, slowly revolve around the five-colored immortal crystal. In these past few years, the sword spirits had been absorbing the energy of the five-colored immortal crystal to recover their strength. As soon as he saw the sword spirits, Jianshan immediately sensed that they were much stronger than before. The five-colored immortal crystal had also shrunk in size. "Xing, Qing Suo, you said that the holy water of the world can help Honglian recover from the aftereffects of using Rising from the Ashes?" Jianshan asked. The holy water of the Spirit Sea that the sword spirits were talking about was the holy water of the world of the sea race. "That's right. We also know a little about the Phoenix race. Every time they use the innate ability of the Phoenix race, Rising from the Ashes, there will be a period of weakness. Their strength will greatly decrease. If they use Rising from the Ashes several times in a row, the period of weakness will accumulate. Fortunately, this little phoenix's strength wasn't too strong. Every time it used Rising from the Ashes, it would only be weakened for 10 years. In our original world, when some powerful phoenixes used the Rising from the Ashes divine ability, they would be weakened for thousands of years, tens of thousands of years, or even longer. In order to shorten the period of weakness and recover to their peak condition as soon as possible, some experts of the Phoenix race began to travel the world in search of a method. In the end, they finally found the holy water of the Spirit Sea that can help them recover, Xing explained. Jianshan's consciousness slowly returned to his body. Although he knew that the holy water of the world could help Honglian recover immediately, he only had one portion of it. He had prepared it for the Azulite swords, so he could not give it to Honglian. "When I return to the Sea Realm next time, I will immediately search for the holy water of the world." Jianshan thought. Right now, he was confident that he possessed the strength to enter the dangerous regions of the Sea Realm to search for the holy water of the world. After leaving Honglian's room, Jianshan entered the artifact space again. He first went to see Yu and the White Tiger to comfort them before directly going to where Uncle Xiao was healing. Uncle Xiao's wounds were healed by the origin energy of Radiant Saint Force from the artifact spirit, so he made a full recovery very quickly. This made Uncle Xiao sigh in amazement, as this was the first time he had seen the origin energy of Radiant Saint Force. He constantly praised how wondrous and powerful it was. With a flip of his hand, a book appeared in Jianshan's empty hand. This was the cultivation method that the Blood Demon Emperor had left behind in the Divine Hall of the Eight Wastelands. The baleful force hidden in the book had stopped attacking Jianshan with Amigami submission. Jianshan passed the book to Uncle Xiao and said, "Uncle Xiao, please take a look at this book." As soon as Jianshan had taken out the book, Houston had already stared at it. When he heard Jinshin's words, he no longer hesitated and immediately accepted the book. As soon as the book entered his hand, Houston produced a soft interjection of surprise. A strange light flashed through his deep, ancient eyes as he stared at the book in his hand. He cried out, "Baleful Force." This is actually Baleful Force, and it's many times purer than the Baleful Force I control. Uncle Shio did not stop the Baleful Force. Instead, he allowed it to enter his body and spread towards his soul. When the Baleful Force came in contact with Houston's soul, not only did it not pose any threat to Houston, but it was even devoured by Houston and converted into his own power. However, Houston had only swallowed a small portion of the Baleful energy. The rest of the Baleful energy was like a startled bird. They retreated from Houston's body at the fastest speed and returned to the book. They quieted down and didn't dare to appear again. This Baleful Force actually has a sliver of intelligence. How rare! How rare! Houston could not help but sigh in amazement. He became even more curious about the contents of the book, so he immediately began to open it. However, Houston's expression changed when he saw the contents of the first page of the book. There was unconcealable shock in his eyes, and this shock deepened as he flipped through the pages. In the end, it turned into a look of deep shock and disbelief. This is the cultivation method of my Bloodsword sect. Jinshin, where did you get this book? Houston suddenly closed the book as he stared at Jinshin in interest. Afterwards, Jinshin told Houston where he had obtained the book and the memory he had obtained from the fragment of the Blood Demon Emperor's soul. When Houston learned that the founding ancestor of the Bloodsword sect was actually an expert of the Sea Realm, he was immediately stunned. His heart churned. He found it very difficult to believe that this was all true. Uncle Shio, this is Amigami. I think it should be very useful to you. Jinshin took out Amigami again and presented it to Uncle Shio. Uncle Shio slowly calmed down. He stared at the Amigami in Jinshin's hand and instinctively reached out to grab it. However, just when his hand was about to touch the Amigami that had been resting in Jinshin's hand suddenly flew up. It turned into a faint, red streak of light and shot towards Uncle Shio with lightning speed. In the end, it burrowed into his forehead and disappeared. Uncle Shio's eyes rapidly dimmed. Afterward, he closed his eyes and directly fainted. Chapter 10:21. Houston lay on the ground with his eyes closed. His face was serene. No one knew what had happened to him during the process of accepting the Amigami. Houston's process took far longer than Jinshin had expected. Jinshin stayed by Houston's side for 7 days and 7 nights before Houston finally woke up. When Houston slowly opened his eyes, Jinshin immediately sensed that Houston's gaze was much sharper than before. "Uncle Shio, how was it? Did everything go smoothly?" Jinshin asked in concern. Houston's body floated up from the ground, his feet firmly standing on the ground. His eyes contained an unconcealable joy, mixed with a bit of complexity. I really never thought that the cultivation method of my Bloodsword sect would be passed down to this Amigami." Houston sighed deeply as he sighed emotionally at the sky. "Only now do I know that the unique cultivation method of my Bloodsword sect is actually a modified version of the Empyrean demon arts recorded in the Amigami. Not only is it an incomplete cultivation method, but its quality is far inferior to the Empyrean demon arts as well." Houston sighed emotionally after learning everything. Who would have thought that the Bloodsword sect, one of the 3 great assassin organizations, would be hiding such a shocking secret? Uncle Shio, the Empyrean demon arts is a cultivation method that surpasses the Saint tier. If you practice this cultivation method, you will be able to break through to the Holy Emperor realm successfully before long and become a Holy Emperor. Jinshan faintly smiled. If Houston could become a Holy Emperor, it would be extremely important to him and the Tianyuan continent. A sliver of excitement appeared in Houston's eyes when he heard that, but disappeared very quickly. After a moment of thought, he said, "I still have over 100 years left. It's not much longer. Whether I can break through to the Holy Emperor realm with the Empyrean demon arts will all depend on the mysteries of the Empyrean demon arts. Jinshin's heart tightened as well. He had never thought that Uncle Shio's remaining lifespan would be so short. 100 years was a long time, but it was only the time for a person of his level to enter seclusion. I hope Uncle Shio can break through to the Holy Emperor realm soon with the Empyrean demon arts, Jinshan prayed inside. It's just a pity that my soul seems to have been restricted by Amigami, so I can't write down the contents of the Empyrean demon arts. Otherwise, I would have been able to perfect the cultivation method of the Bloodsword sect, Houston said regretfully. At this moment, Houston seemed to think of something. After a moment of hesitation, he pulled out a palm-sized, blood-red token from his space ring and said to Jinshin, Jinshin, 2 of the people who killed your parents are still alive. If you want revenge, take this token to the 4 protectors of the Bloodsword sect. They know where the 2 of them are. With that, Houston passed the token to Jinshin. Heavy killing intent immediately flashed through Jinshin's eyes when he heard that. He could still clearly remember that there were a total of 5 people who had killed his parents. A few years ago, he and the 4 protectors of the Bloodsword sect had worked together to kill 3 of them in the City of God in the Holy Emperor's Kingdom. The remaining 2 had used a secret technique to escape. Jinshin originally thought that the 2 of them had died at the hands of the 4 protectors, but he never expected them to still be alive. Jinshan slowly extended his hand and took the token from Houston. He gripped it tightly and coldly said, I will find the 2 of them as soon as possible and make them pay a heavy price for what they did back then. Houston glanced at the token in Jinshin's hand and smiled deeply. However, it disappeared very quickly, and he said, Jinshin, I will immediately return to Longevity Valley to cultivate after I leave this place. I will do my best to break through to the Holy Emperor's realm before the end of my life. Jinshin, you've committed quite a few killings in the past few years, and your strength has increased far too quickly. Once you're done with your matters, take little Fatty back to Longevity Valley. I hope he can stay there for 10 years. Uncle Shio, once I'm done with my matters, I will definitely return to Longevity Valley and stay there for 10 years according to your instructions. Jinshin seriously replied. He only had respect for Uncle Shio, and he knew that Uncle Shio was doing all of this for his sake. Uncle Shio nodded in relief. He was very satisfied that Jinshin was still able to maintain his composure after reaching such a high level of cultivation. Jinshan left the artifact space with Yu, Rum, Guinness, and Houston. As soon as they left, Houston immediately bid farewell to everyone and returned to Longevity Valley by himself. Jinshan was in a hurry to find the 2 remaining murderers, so he did not stay in Mercenary City for long. After bidding farewell to Tianjin, he directly made his way out of the city. Big brother, are you leaving again? Just when Jinshin was about to leave the huge barrier of Mercenary City, Xiaoling's sobbing and reluctant voice rang out. Jinshin looked around, but he did not find Xiaoling's figure. As a result, he said to the air, Xiaoling, Big Brother still has important matters to deal with, so I can't stay with you anymore. I'll come see you next time when I'm free, all right? This time, Ruijin, Blackfish, and Holian no longer had any strange expressions when they heard Jinshin's monologue. They glanced around with some respect. They all knew that the barrier spirit, which had surpassed the Holy Emperor, was hiding in the empty space and talking to Jinshin. However, they were unable to find Xiaoling with their strength. Big Brother, Xiaoling can sense that the people from the world of Forsaken Saints will be able to break through the seal soon. You're still too weak right now, so Xiaoling wants to help you increase your strength. Xiaoling can project the mysteries of the world for you to comprehend, Jian Chun gently said. Jinshin could no longer hear the liveliness from Xiaoling's voice. Instead, it was filled with sadness, misery, and fear. Although he could not see Xiaoling's appearance, Jinshin could already imagine just how pitiful Xiaoling was right now. Xiaoling was like a frail little girl who was being mercilessly threatened by a group of evil people. She was filled with helplessness and fear as she had no parents. Xiaoling, I really do have something very important to do right now, so I can't comprehend the mysteries of the world that you project. However, I do have a few friends. Can you project the mysteries of the world for them so that their strength can increase quickly? Jinshin asked. However, he secretly rejoiced inside. If that was the case, he could send all the 6 cycle Heaven Saint Masters and Saint Rulers in Changyang Prefecture over so that Xiaoling could project the mysteries of the world for them to comprehend. As long as they're Big Brother's friends, Xiaoling can project the mysteries of the world for them to see. Big Brother, are they the friend you're talking about? However, they've already reached great perfection of the Holy Emperor level. The mysteries of the world required to break through to Holy Emperor level are extremely complicated, so it'll be very difficult for Xiaoling to project them completely. I probably won't be able to help them. Xiaoling was rather gloomy, as if she was very unhappy that she could not help Jinshin. No, of course not them. Jinshin hurriedly comforted Xiaoling. At the same time, he introduced Ming Dong, who was still in Mercenary City, to Xiaoling so that Xiaoling could help Ming Dong. Afterward, Jinshin thought about it and decided to leave Rum Guinness behind as well. He also got Xiaoling to project the mysteries of the world for Rum Guinness to comprehend so that Rum Guinness could increase her strength further. As for the white tiger, due to its original form as a winged tiger, it possessed a unique advantage. It did not need to comprehend the mysteries of the world like ordinary people at all to break through. It only needed enough energy, so Jinshin did not leave the white tiger behind. Taita was the war god of the 100 races, so his path was different from ordinary people. He did not need to comprehend the mysteries of the world at all, so Xiaoling's projection was useless to Taita. Jinshin originally wanted to leave Yu behind as well, but Yu is still too weak right now. The mysteries of the world were too distant for her right now, so he could only give up on it. Xiaoling moved extremely quickly as well. As soon as Jinshin finished speaking, she immediately sent Rum Guinness underground. Ming Dong, who was cultivating in an independent space within Mercenary City, suddenly vanished as well. He had been taken away by Xiaoling without anyone noticing. Even Tianjin had failed to sense anything. Jinshin carried Yu as Ruijin, Blackfish, and Honglian left Mercenary City together. They were currently heading towards the location of the 4 protectors of the Bloodsword sect under the guidance of the Blood Red token. Once I eliminate the people who harmed my parents, I'll immediately return to Changyang Prefecture and send my 2 great-grandfathers in Jitatai to Mercenary City to comprehend the mysteries of the world that Xiaoling has projected. After that, I'll go to the Felicity Empire, one of the 3 great empires. King, you've caused so much trouble for my flame mercenaries. Jinshin, will never forgive you. Jinshin thought as he flew through the air. He had already made arrangements for his future journey. Chapter 10:22. The Longqi Kingdom was one of the 8 great kingdoms on the continent. It was a powerful kingdom that stood on the same level as the Qin Empire. It possessed a history of several tens of thousand years, so its strength could not be underestimated. There were even saint rulers in the royal palace. Today, the Longqi Kingdom's imperial palace was still as quiet as usual. Majestic and domineering halls filled the entire imperial palace. They imperceptibly emitted a vast and grand aura that filled the heavens and earth. There were groups of armored soldiers in the royal palace. Their chests were puffed out as they patrolled the area in an orderly fashion, silently protecting the peace of the royal palace. At this moment, 2 blurs that were hard to catch with the naked eye entered the royal palace with extreme speed. They silently shot towards the back of the royal palace. In the end, they entered the row of halls in the royal palace that had been abandoned for a long time, disappearing from sight. Their arrival was completely silent and did not alarm anyone. Even the saint rulers in the royal palace failed to sense the arrival of uninvited guests. 2 beggar-like old men in tattered clothes and disheveled hair carefully leaned against the door in the abandoned hall. They cautiously observed the situation outside. They had concealed their presences and even held their breaths. They seemed extremely nervous. The 2 old men only stopped worrying in the end after observing for a while and discovering that there were no disturbances. Afterward, their legs gave out and they collapsed on the cold ground at the same time as they gasped for breath. Fortunately, We didn't alarm the saint rulers in the royal palace. Old bastard Sidhu, this method of hiding presences really is quite good. We should be able to hide here safely for a few more days, one of the old men said through a communication technique. Exhaustion filled his face. So what if this method of hiding presences is profound? The 4 protectors of the Bloodsword sect can still find us. We can't shake them off, the other old man said through a communication technique. The 2 of them were especially careful here. They did not even dare to make a sound, afraid that they would alarm the saint rulers in the royal palace. The 2 beggar-like saint rulers were Situ and Matang. In the past few years, the 2 of them had been hunted down by the 4 protectors of the Bloodsword sect and had been on the run. The kingdom of Longqi is a vassal of the Felicity Empire, one of the 3 great empires. I'm sure the 4 great protectors of the Bloodsword sect wouldn't dare to cause trouble here. It should be very safe for us to hide here. Matang pondered. Old Situ nodded in agreement with that. That's right. The 4 protectors of the Bloodsword sect will catch up very soon. They definitely know that we're hiding here. Once the 4 of them approach the imperial palace, the saint rulers in the palace will definitely come out to stop them. There might even be a great battle. Once they're fighting, the 2 of us will find an opportunity to strike suddenly and deal with one protector together. We'll try to kill one of them. Ma Tung's eyes lit up. He replied, "That's a good idea. The 4 of them have basically chased us around an entire continent. It's time for them to pay some interest." 2 days later, 4 cold-faced, middle-aged men in blood-red robes arrived through the air. They directly entered the royal capital of the kingdom of Longqi. The 4 of them radiated with an invisible, baleful presence. Wherever they went, the temperature would rapidly plummet, as if the place had become a cavern of ice. The 2 of them are hiding in the city. The old sect master has already informed us through a secret technique. Once we find the 2 of them, we should not act recklessly for now. We'll wait for the new sect master to arrive and listen to his instructions. Let's find an inn in the city to rest first. A protector from the Bloodsword sect said emotionlessly before entering the city with the other 3. Guess who the new sect master will be? However, I'm certain that he has some grievances with the 2 people we're chasing. However, our Bloodsword sect has been in seclusion for over 1,000 years. I've never heard of any elder of the sect having any grievances with them. A protector said softly. His voice was filled with doubt. Shue-san, shut up. The matters of the sect master are not something we can discuss. A protector's face sank as he glared at the person who had spoken. The protector called Shue-san immediately stopped talking. The 4 protectors of the Bloodsword sect walked down the street. Their identical appearances and the faint, baleful presence they gave off immediately attracted the attention of everyone on the street. All the passers-by and mercenaries along the way made way for the 4 of them. With their sharp eyes, they could tell that the 4 of them were not to be trifled with. The 4 protectors of the Bloodsword sect walked side by side. They regained their usual coldness and gave off a feeling of being unapproachable. At this moment, 4 white-haired old men in white robes appeared on the street. They stood side by side and just happened to block the path of the 4 protectors of the Bloodsword sect. From the looks of it, they seemed to have been waiting there for a long time. The 4 old men were extremely ordinary. They did not give off any presences at all, just like ordinary people. Although the 4 of them stood on the street openly, they did not attract any attention. With their path blocked, the 4 protectors of the Bloodsword sect immediately stopped. They coldly stared at the 4 old men, but none of them said anything. At this moment, one of the old men clasped his hands and said, "We are the 4 imperial protectors of the Longqi kingdom. May I ask why the 4 of you have come to our kingdom?" The old man's voice was extremely indifferent. It was filled with a sliver of coldness and toughness. Although the Bloodsword sect had vanished from the Tianyuan continent for thousands of years, they were still one of the 3 greatest assassins on the continent. The simultaneous arrival of 4 saint rulers was not something a powerful kingdom could ignore, so the Longqi kingdom immediately sent 4 saint rulers to stop them. The 4 protectors of the Bloodsword sect have come under the orders of the sect master to hunt down human traitors. One of the protectors said emotionlessly, "This is the imperial capital of our kingdom. There are no traitors here. "Please leave quickly," one of the Imperial protectors forcefully said. He did not fear the famed Bloodsword sect at all. "Our Bloodsword sect has never needed anyone to tell us what to do." The 4 protectors of the Bloodsword sect were expressionless. Strands of heavy killing intent had already appeared in their cold eyes. The baleful Inchi from the 4 of them had become denser as well. From the looks of it, they were clearly prepared for battle at any moment. The 4 Imperial protectors of the Longqi Kingdom were indeed very forceful, but the protectors of the Bloodsword sect were even more forceful. When the 4 Imperial protectors of the Longqi Kingdom saw the unyielding attitude of the Bloodsword sect's protectors, they immediately thought of retreating. They knew that if they didn't back down, then a battle with the 4 protectors of the Bloodsword sect would be unavoidable. "This is our kingdom, not your Bloodsword sect's territory. If you insist on acting like this, we'll just have to wait and see." The vile presence unique to the Bloodsword sect was renowned across the continent. Everyone feared them, so the 4 Imperial protectors of the Longqi Kingdom did not dare to come into conflict with them. They immediately retreated after throwing out a threat. Watching the 4 Imperial protectors of the Longqi Kingdom leave, a protector of the Bloodsword sect murmured, "They have very deep enmity towards us. Over 1,000 years ago, the king of the Longqi Kingdom and 2 Imperial protectors died at the hands of our Bloodsword sect. Of course, they have enmity towards us," explained the protector beside him expressionlessly. Within the royal palace of the Longqi Kingdom, the 4 Imperial protectors were gathered together with solemn expressions. "I didn't think that the people of the Bloodsword sect would appear in our kingdom again. Over 1,000 years ago, the Bloodsword sect killed 2 of our Imperial protectors. This enmity must be avenged. 300 years ago, the Lodo Imperial Protector successfully broke through to the Holy Emperor realm and is currently serving as an Imperial Protector in the Felicity Empire. Of the 2 Imperial Protectors killed by the Bloodsword sect, one of them was the younger brother of the Lodo Imperial Protector. We'll immediately notify the Lodo Imperial Protector and let him decide." The 4 Imperial protectors of the Longqi Kingdom immediately sent one of them to the Felicity Empire through a spatial gate to report what happened here to the Lodo Imperial Protector. As for the 4 protectors of the Bloodsword sect, they found an inn in the Longqi Kingdom and stayed there. From then on, they never left the room and meditated all day long. They closely sensed the location of Old Ghost Situ and Old Ghost Situ and quietly waited for the new sect master to arrive. In the imperial palace of the Felicity Empire, a middle-aged man in a white robe was sitting cross-legged on a large bed in a resplendent palace. The middle-aged man had a common face and a resolute expression, giving people a sense of steadiness. However, he had a head of white hair that did not match his age. Such a combination made him look unique. This middle-aged man was Lodo, a Holy Emperor realm expert. He was currently the Imperial Protector of the Felicity Empire. An old man with white hair and a ruddy complexion stood respectfully in front of Luo Duo. This old man was the Imperial Protector of the Longqi Kingdom. He was reporting to Luo Duo that the 4 great protectors of the Bloodsword sect had reappeared in the Longqi Kingdom. The Bloodsword sect. Luo Duo's slightly closed eyes slowly opened. Immediately, there was a sharp glint in his eyes, mixed with soaring hatred. "Imperial Protector Lodo, the people of the Bloodsword sect have come to our Longqi Kingdom again. What should we do? Please enlighten us." Imperial Protector Lodo, the Imperial Protector of the Longqi Kingdom, cupped his hands and bowed respectfully. "What else can we do?" "Kill them, of course. Avenge my brother," Lodo said without hesitation. But the sect master of the Bloodsword sect, the Imperial Protector of the Longqi Kingdom, wanted to say something, but hesitated. His eyes were filled with deep fear. Lodo got off the bed and coldly said, "In the Felicity Kingdom, I specially looked through the information on the sect master of the Bloodsword sect. According to what I know, Houston's lifespan is already nearing its end, so there's no need to worry about him. Besides, apart from Houston, there are no other experts in the Bloodsword sect worthy of our Felicity Empire's attention. If Houston wants to act, our Felicity Empire will naturally send people to stop him." Chapter 1023. The Imperial Protector immediately rejoiced when he heard Luo Duo's words. He hurriedly clasped his hands and said, "Luo Duo, Imperial Protector, since the Bloodsword sect has nothing to fear, we might as well go all the way. We'll directly uproot the Bloodsword sect and take revenge for the 1,000-year enmity." A cold light immediately flickered through Luo Duo's eyes. He lowered his head in thought and said, "Right now, the sect master of the Bloodsword sect, Houston, is still alive. We can't force them into a dead end, or we'll probably be met with a full-force counterattack from Houston. If a great perfection Holy Emperor decides to throw away his life to take revenge on us, it'll be a devastating disaster for our Felicity Empire. However, it's still possible to kill the saint rulers of the Bloodsword sect that have invaded the kingdom of Longqi." Luo Duo's presence suddenly changed. He suddenly turned around and stared at the respectful Imperial Protector of the kingdom of Longqi with shining eyes. He said, "Immediately return to the kingdom of Longqi and closely monitor the movements of the experts of the Bloodsword sect. Just in case, I need to see the other Imperial Protector in the Imperial Palace before I deal with the Bloodsword sect." "Yes, sir." The Imperial Protector of the kingdom of Longqi immediately returned through a space gate in the Imperial Palace. Luo Duo did not stop at all. He immediately made his way to the forbidden grounds of the Imperial Palace. A heavy killing intent flickered through his eyes from time to time. "Brother, you died to the hands of the experts of the Bloodsword sect over 1,000 years ago. I didn't have the power to take revenge for you back then, but the opportunity has come. I can guarantee you that once the sect master of the Bloodsword sect, Houston, dies, I'll immediately use the power of the Felicity Empire to uproot the Bloodsword sect and take revenge for you." Back then, when Lodo broke through to the Holy Emperor realm, he could have stayed in the Longqi kingdom and increased the status of the Longqi kingdom. However, he didn't hesitate and came to the Felicity Empire to become the Imperial Protector. The main reason was because of the Bloodsword sect. He had always wanted to use the power of the Felicity Empire to eliminate the Bloodsword sect. In the imperial city of the Longqi Kingdom, the Imperial Protector who had returned from Felicity brought back Luo Duo's orders. As a result, the four of them did not continue to make trouble for the four protectors of the Bloodsword sect. Instead, they stayed in the Imperial Palace and carefully sensed the auras of the four protectors, paying attention to their movements at all times. However, the four of them didn't notice that two uninvited guests had appeared in the Longqi Kingdom's Imperial Palace. They were quietly hiding in a remote area. 2 days passed in the blink of an eye. These 2 days were very peaceful. The imperial city of the Longqi Kingdom was still operating as usual. The bustling streets were bustling with people coming and going all day long. It was a hubbub of voices. It was very lively. At this moment, several sounds of breaking through the air suddenly rang out. Several silhouettes were rapidly approaching the imperial city of the Longqi Kingdom. Their speed was extremely fast. A moment ago, they were still far away in the horizon, but in the next second, they were already floating in the air above the imperial city. There in the city, an extremely handsome young man who seemed to be in his 20s stood at the very front of the group. He held a blood-red token in his hand as he indifferently spoke. His eyes were as sharp as unsheathed swords as he slowly scanned the city below him. These people were Jianshun, Ruijin, Blackfish, and Honglian. After a few days of traveling, the four of them had basically traversed half of the Tianyuan continent. They had followed the directions of the token to find this place. Although they had all traveled through the air, the other three had all reached the great perfection of the Holy Emperor's side from Jianshun. Their comprehension of the mysteries of space had reached the apex. With their ability to control space, they were nowhere near as fast as space gates, but they were still unbelievably fast. As a result, Jianshun crossed the distance in an extremely short amount of time, with Ruijin leading the way, arriving here from Mercenary City. Just as Jianshun's group arrived above the city, the four protectors of the Bloodsword sect opened their eyes at the same time. One of them said with a deep voice, "I can sense the presence of the token. The new sect master has arrived. The three of you, come with me to receive him." 4 red blurs flashed by, and the 4 protectors all flew out of the window. They appeared in the sky like ghosts and just happened to stand before Jianshan. The 4 of them first looked at the token in Jianshan's hand before slowly shifting their gazes to Jianshan. When they saw Jianshan's appearance, they became stunned. Even their eyes became rather stunned. Disbelief flooded their faces. The 4 of them had never thought that the new sect master would not be one of the founding members of the sect, but the young Jianshan. Jianshan remained the same as before. He glanced past the 4 protectors before clasping his hands at them. I am Jianshan. Greetings, protectors. Jianshan still felt gratitude towards the 4 protectors of the Bloodsword sect. He would never forget that when Changyang Prefecture was in trouble a few years ago, it was because of the timely arrival of the 4 protectors that prevented Changyang Prefecture from suffering too much damage. Otherwise, the entire Changyang Prefecture would have been razed to the ground by Old Man Situ and the others. At that time, the people who would be injured would not be limited to just Changyang Ba and Bai Yintian. The 4 protectors returned to their senses very quickly. Seeing how the new sect master was actually so courteous to them, they immediately felt flattered. Without any hesitation, the 4 of them dropped to one knee in the air and called out, "The 4 protectors of the Bloodsword sect greet the sect master." What? Sect master? Jianshan became stunned when he heard how the 4 protectors had addressed him, but he understood very quickly. There was probably a rule in the Bloodsword sect where seeing the token was the same as seeing the sect master. Since he was holding the token of the sect, the 4 protectors naturally mistook him as the sect master. Please don't misunderstand, protectors. I, Jianshan, am not the sect master of the Bloodsword sect. Uncle Xiao only lent me this token so that I could use it to find the 4 of you. Jianshan hurriedly explained, but he muttered inside, so Houston is Uncle Xiao's real name. The reason why his surname changed is probably because he retreated to the continent 1,000 years ago. After all, what happened 1,000 years ago was just too great of a blow to Uncle Xiao. The 4 protectors of the Bloodsword sect still did not stand up. One of them lowered his head and said, "Sect Master, the old sect master used a secret technique to notify us a few days ago. He told us that he had already passed on his position. In the future, the person who comes to us with a command arrow will be the new sect master of the Bloodsword sect. Everyone in the Bloodsword sect must obey the new sect master." What did you say? Uncle Xiao has already passed on the position of sect master? This time, it was Jianshan's turn to be surprised. No matter how muddle-headed Jianshan was, he understood that Uncle Xiao had already passed on the position of sect master to him since the 4 protectors had spoken so clearly. However, the news had come just too suddenly, so Jianshan struggled to accept it. He had never thought that his status would undergo a drastic change the moment he received the token from Uncle Xiao. He had become the sect master of the Bloodsword sect for no reason. The Bloodsword sect was one of the 3 great assassin organizations renowned across the Tianyuan continent. They could not be underestimated. Although they were nowhere close to the Protector clans, they were no weaker than ancient clans. The 4 protectors have been ordered by the old sect master to await the sect master's arrival. At the same time, we are to keep an eye on the 2 human traders. We await the sect master's instructions on what we should do next. The 4 protectors said together as if they could read each other's minds. Jianshan sank into his thoughts. Now that the people who had killed his parents were here, he was in no mood to dwell on the matter of the sect master. He immediately put aside for now and said, "May I ask where the 2 human traders are right now? Have you not killed them after chasing them for so many years?" "Sect master, the 2 of them are in the Imperial Palace. Due to the old sect master's orders a few years ago, we did not kill or capture the 2 traders. As a result, the 2 of them are still alive," said a protector. "I see." Jianshan came to a realization. He then looked at the majestic Imperial Palace in the distance and said, "Let's go. Let's go to the Imperial Palace." With that, Jianshan flew toward the Imperial Palace first. Ruijin, Heiyu, and Heiyu followed closely behind Jianshan. The 4 protectors walked side by side at the back. The group arrived outside the imperial palace of the Longqi Kingdom very quickly. Afterwards, they swaggered into the palace from above. Only when they arrived at the center of the palace did they stop. They hovered several hundred meters in the air and looked down at the resplendent palaces below. Bloodsword sect, you've gone too far. How dare you step on the heaven's gate of the imperial palace of our Longqi Kingdom? Do you really think there's no one in our kingdom? A furious roar rang out from below. Although the voice was old, it was filled with energy. The tremendous voice echoed through the surroundings, scattering the clouds above. With that, 4 ruddy old men flew out from the imperial palace. They charged into the sky with tremendous presences and faced Jinshin's group from 100 meters away. Chapter 10:24. The 4 imperial protectors of the Longqi Kingdom faced off against Jinshin's group from 100 meters away. Their expressions were extremely ugly. The people from the Bloodsword sect had already arrived, but the imperial protector of the Luo Duo Kingdom, who they relied on the most, still hadn't arrived. This made the 4 of them feel extremely uneasy. Although 4 of them have hidden their presences so that we can't sense their strength, they must be saint rulers since they can hover in the air without relying on the energy of the world. There are 8 saint rulers in total, so the 4 of us are definitely not their opponents, Jinshin said. The 4 imperial protector of the Longqi Kingdom thought to himself. They were outnumbered right now, so they could not act rashly. People of the Bloodsword sect, this is an important place in the imperial palace of the Longqi Kingdom. You are not welcome here. Please leave immediately, one of the imperial protectors said emotionlessly with a deep voice. The cold attitude of the imperial protector of the Longqi Kingdom made Jinshin frown slightly. He glanced at the 4 of them, but he did not say anything. He immediately expanded his soul and enveloped the entire imperial palace. Very soon, he found the old man Situ and the old man Ma Tung hiding in the palace. Jinshin clasped his fist at the imperial protector of the Longqi Kingdom and said, "Gentlemen, I have chased after an enemy all the way here. The enemy is currently hiding in the imperial palace, so please make things easy for me." The enemy you speak of in the Bloodsword sect is probably someone who has paid a large sum of money for you to kill. Bloodsword sect, you are far too arrogant. Although the strength of the Longqi Kingdom is far inferior to yours, we are not so easily bullied. Don't even think about killing people in the imperial palace of the Longqi Kingdom. The imperial protector of the Longqi Kingdom spoke extremely forcefully. They believed that Jinshin wanted to kill an important person in the imperial palace. Hearing this, Jinshin's face sank slightly. If the 4 of you insist, then we can only offend you. The 4 imperial protector of the Longqi Kingdom shivered, knowing that conflict was unavoidable. Immediately, 4 surging auras were released from their bodies. At the same time, 4 saint weapons appeared in their hands. They were ready for battle. A cold smile appeared on Jinshin's face. Just as he was about to move, a blood-red blur flashed before his eyes. The 4 protectors of the Bloodsword sect arrived in front of Jinshin at the same time, blocking the 4 imperial protector of the Longqi Kingdom. A blood-red spike appeared in their hands, and a dense layer of baleful chi radiated from their bodies. A great battle was about to break out between the 2 sides. Ha ha ha! I didn't think that after hiding for 1,000 years, the Bloodsword sect still hasn't worn down their spirit from back then. They're still as arrogant as ever. At this moment, a loud laughter resounded across the horizon. Soon after, the nearby space began to violently distort. Space was quickly torn apart, forming a space gate. An ordinary-looking, white-haired, middle-aged man of about 40 years of age strode out from the space gate. In an instant, he arrived in front of the 4 imperial protector of the Longqi Kingdom. At the same time, a vast and boundless aura radiated from the middle-aged man, almost causing the air to freeze. Seeing this middle-aged man, the 4 imperial protector of the Longqi Kingdom immediately let out a huge sigh of relief. Their faces revealed excitement. Imperial Protector Luo Duo, you've finally come. If you had come a moment later, the 4 of us probably would have died miserably at the hands of the Bloodsword sect. Luo Duo's face sank when he heard that. He looked at the four protectors of the Bloodsword sect with undisguised killing intent and said coldly, "Your Bloodsword sect really is getting bolder and bolder. You've actually come to my long Qi kingdom time and time again to make trouble. But it's a pity that the current Longqi kingdom is no longer the Longqi kingdom of 1,000 years ago. Since you've come today, there's no need for you to return. Stay here forever." Luo Duo spoke extremely arrogantly. He had already guessed that the sect master of the Bloodsword sect, Houston, was nearing the end of his life. Even if Luo Duo had killed a few experts of the sect, Houston would not dare to take the great risk of offending the Felicity Empire, which would lead to the destruction of the Bloodsword sect. The four protectors became stern. From Luo Duo's presence, the four of them could tell that he was a holy emperor. They were not people they could deal with as fifth heavenly layer saint rulers. Even with their baleful force, it would be difficult for them to protect themselves. After all, the difference in strength was just too great. Jianshun, who stood behind the four protectors, began to laugh in anger when he heard Luo Duo's arrogant words. He growled, "If we're talking about arrogance, there's probably no one present who can compare to you. Why don't you weigh yourself before you speak, and see if you have the strength to say something like that?" Luo Duo's sharp gaze immediately landed on Jianshun. He quickly glanced past Ruijin, "Hey you," and "Hey you" behind Jianshun. However, he was unable to tell their strength, but he did not fear them at all because he had the support of the Felicity Empire. "Kid, who are you? Do you dare to state your name?" Luo Duo asked Jianshun with a heavy voice. "How dare you? This is the new sect master of the Bloodsword sect. Do not be rude to him." One of the protectors called out before Jianshun could reply. Surprise immediately flashed through Luo Duo's eyes when he heard that Jianshun was actually the sect master of the Bloodsword sect. He could not help but carefully study Jianshun. He gently smiled. "I never thought that you would actually be the new sect master of the Bloodsword sect. How surprising. May I ask if Senior Houston is doing well? What kind of status do you have with Senior Houston? How can you ask about him? However, since you said that you wanted to keep us here forever, allow me to experience your skills and see if you really have the ability to do so," Luo Duo emotionlessly replied. Afterwards, he passed by the four protectors of the Bloodsword sect and arrived at the very front. He stared at Luo Duo closely. A cold smile appeared on Luo Duo's lips as a strong, killing intent flickered in the depths of his eyes. He said in a deep voice, "All right, since the new sect master of the Bloodsword sect wants to experience it, I'll fulfill your wish." With that, Luo Duo reached out, an invisible world force immediately gathered in his hand. Afterward, he slammed it towards Jianshun with lightning-like speed. Luo Duo did not hold back at all. Immediately, he pushed out with an overwhelming force. Terrifying pulses of energy caused the surrounding space to violently tremble. Jianshun remained composed. He could not be bothered to use his sword against a mere second heavenly layer holy emperor like Luo Duo. Chaotic force surged out of his Niden and instantly condensed in his right hand as he threw out a punch. Jianshun's punch was simple, but the might it possessed could not be underestimated. The punch tore through the air, causing the space there to crack. A tiny crack appeared. Boom! With a great boom, Jianshun's punch dispersed Luo Duo's invisible palm with an unstoppable force. The powerful shockwaves shook the surroundings, causing the space within 1,000 meters to violently distort and blur. How is this possible? He actually broke through my palm strike so easily. Luo Duo's heart was filled with shock. The strength of this new sect master of the Bloodsword sect had already far exceeded his expectations. "Luo Duo, I'll make you pay for your arrogance now," Jianshun coldly said. He stepped through the air and arrived before Luo Duo in an instant. He also threw out a punch with a boundless presence at Luo Duo's chest. Luo Duo's face suddenly became stern. After witnessing Jianshun's strength, he no longer dared to be careless like before. Extremely powerful saint force surged out from his body, condensing into a palm-sized, fiery red sword in his right hand in an instant. He then stabbed it toward Jianshun's fist with lightning speed. Jinshin sneered. His fist did not change its trajectory and actually struck toward the tip of Luo Duo's sword. He actually wanted to use his body to take on the attack of a second heavenly layer, Holy Emperor's saint weapon. Crazy. The sect master of the Bloodsword sect must be crazy. Does he really think his fist can take on my saint weapon? Humph. Since you're so confident, I'll cripple your right arm. Luo Duo sneered inside. The might of his sword actually increased by 30%. Bam! Jinshin's fist collided with Luo Duo's sword and actually produced a muffled sound. A terrifying force erupted from the point of contact and rapidly expanded in all directions. The 4 spectating Imperial Protector and the 4 protectors of the Bloodsword sect all swayed from the force and were sent flying back uncontrollably. Jinshin's fist was not pierced through as Luo Duo had expected. Instead, it was completely unscathed. Luo Duo's full-powered attack did not even leave a scratch on Jinshin's fist. Jinshin's chaotic body had reached the 3rd layer. Not only did his strength reach the 3rd heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor's chaotic body, but even his body's defenses had reached the same level. Now, he could take on a 3rd heavenly layer Holy Emperor's attack without being injured. Only Holy Emperors at the 3rd heavenly layer and above could pose a threat to him. With Luo Duo's strength at the 2nd heavenly layer, he could not even harm Jinshin unless he used a Saint tier battle skill. How is this possible? How is this possible? How can your fist be so tough? Luo Duo stared at Jinshin's unscathed fist in shock. Disbelief filled his face. Jinshin did not say anything. He pressed forward again and threw the same punch at Luo Duo. Dark chaotic force vaguely shot out from his fist. The presence of destruction immediately wreaked havoc in the surroundings, shocking everyone. The power of this punch was much stronger than the previous 2 punches. A gleam of light flashed through Holian's eyes as she watched from the back. She whispered, "What kind of power is Jinshin using? Why have I never seen or heard of it? Even my inherited memories don't have any records of this power." Ruijin and Blackfish shook their heads at the same time. Ruijin stared at Jinshin without blinking and said, "I don't know either, but I can sense that the power he's using is very powerful. It seems like it's not mature yet. There's still a lot of room for improvement." Sensing the power of Jinshin's punch, Luo Duo's face changed drastically. He immediately blocked with his huge sword. Clang! Jinshin's punch was heavy and powerful. When it struck the Saint weapon, it erupted with a shocking sound. The terrifying power actually caused Luo Duo's huge sword to bend slightly. A powerful repulsive force was transmitted from the huge sword, numbing Luo Duo's right arm. Afterwards, his arm went limp. The huge sword that had been blocking in front of him viciously slammed into his chest, breaking several of his ribs. Luo Duo vomited a mouthful of blood as he was immediately blown away. His face paled, having been heavily injured. However, as he flew away, a pure white piece of jade appeared in Luo Duo's hand. He crushed it without any hesitation. Chapter 1025. After crushing the jade stone in his hand, a relaxed smile appeared on Luo Duo's face. Even though he was heavily injured, he wasn't worried about his life in the slightest. Before returning to the kingdom of Longqi, Luo Duo had thought of all the possibilities and made ample preparations. That was to find the other imperial protector of the Felicity Empire and have them lend a hand at a crucial moment. The jade stone he had just crushed was a method to contact the other imperial protector of the Felicity Empire. Although the kingdom of Longqi was very far from the Felicity Empire, this distance was a piece of cake for any holy emperor. They only needed to casually tear open space and create a space gate to come here. Luo Duo's body flew back several thousand meters before stabilizing. He couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Jinshin's punch was comparable to the full power attack of a 3rd heavenly layer holy emperor. Even though Luo Duo only endured a small portion of that punch, he was still heavily injured. Seeing that Luo Duo was heavily injured by Jinshin in just a few moves, the 4 imperial protector of the kingdom of Longqi couldn't help but change their expressions greatly. Their moods became extremely unsightly. Luo Duo was the greatest reliance of the kingdom of Longqi. He was the pride of the kingdom of Longqi. If even Luo Duo wasn't a match for the other party, then the kingdom of Longqi would no longer have any strength to contend with the Bloodsword sect. Jinshin hovered in the air and coldly looked at Luo Duo. He coldly said, "Sire, if you only have this much strength, then I'm afraid you won't be able to keep the people of the Bloodsword sect here forever." Although Luo Duo was shocked by Jinshin's strength, he still sneered, "Master of the Bloodsword sect, you are indeed very strong. I am far from being your opponent, but the real show is yet to come." As soon as Luo Duo finished speaking, the space in front of him twisted and quickly formed a space gate. Immediately, two powerful presences that were much more powerful than Luo Duo's were emitted from the space gate. They were like two furious dragons that wantonly surged in the surroundings, enveloping the entire space. In front of these two powerful auras, the air stopped flowing, and the yuan qi of the world became still. Even the formless power of the world became quiet. Two white-robed old men walked out from the space gate side by side. Their gazes were like torches as they swept past Jinshin and the others, finally stopping on Luo Duo. However, when they saw Luo Duo's horrible appearance, their expressions changed at the same time. They stepped through the air and immediately arrived before Luo Duo, silently like ghosts. One of them said with a deep voice, "Luo Duo, are you all right? Who injured you like this?" "Imperial Protector Fong Yin, Imperial Protector Taji. The person who injured me is the new master of the Bloodsword sect. I, Luo Duo, am not his opponent. I hope the two Imperial Protectors can help me regain my dignity," Luo Duo said with an extremely deep voice. Imperial Protector Fong Yin patted Luo Duo's shoulder and said, "We're all family, so there's no need to be so polite. Don't worry, we'll get revenge for you." As he said that, the Imperial Protector Fong Yin looked at Jinshin and the others and said, "May I ask which one of you is the new master of the Bloodsword sect?" Although he said that, Fong Yan's gaze remained fixed on Jinshin. From where Jinshin stood, he had already determined that Luo Duo had been injured by Jinshin. Jinshin's expression did not change at all. He clasped his hands calmly and said, "I am a new master of the Bloodsword sect. May I ask what advice you have for me?" Jinshin could already tell that the two Holy Emperor experts who had come to reinforce him were at the 5th and 6th heavenly layers respectively. People like that were no threat to him. Fong Yan's expression sank slightly as he said, "I don't dare to give you any advice. However, not only did Sect Master step into the territory of my Felicity Empire without permission, you even injured my Felicity Empire's Imperial Protector. If Sect Master doesn't give me an explanation for this matter, where will my Felicity Empire's face go?" Jinshin's eyes immediately lit up when he heard that they were experts from the Felicity Empire. He said, "So you're actually from the Felicity Empire. You've come at the perfect time. May I know if the King of the Bloodsword is from your Felicity Empire?" "That's right. My Felicity Empire just happens to have someone like that. May I ask what your relationship is with the King of the Bloodsword?" The Imperial Protector Fong Yin stared closely at Jinshin. "An enemy, someone I have to kill." Jinshin's voice was heavy. As he spoke, a powerful killing intent radiated from him. The expressions of the Imperial Protector Fong Yin and Taji both changed when they heard Jinshin's words. Taji stepped through the air and arrived 100 meters away with an extremely sharp presence. He growled, "Master of the Bloodsword sect, looks like you're determined to become enemies with my Felicity Empire. Since that's the case, let me witness the strength of the Master of the Bloodsword sect first. Let's see just how capable you are compared to Houston for you to be so arrogant." Taji extended a finger, and the silent world force in the surroundings immediately became abnormally lively. It gathered at the tip of Taji's finger with unbelievable speed, condensing into a powerful strand of force that shot toward Jinshin in a single moment. Taji's strength was on par with the 6th heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor. He was even more powerful than Fong Yan, so Jinshin was unable to deal with such an attack as easily as he had dealt with Luo Duo. He immediately pulled out the Emperor armament from his space ring and stabbed out with lightning-like speed. A gray streak of light shot out from the tip of the Emperor armament. It tore through space with a devastating presence, shooting toward Taji with lightning-like speed. The gray sword Chi shot forward like a hot knife through butter. It pierced through the force of the world that Taji had condensed and continued onward without slowing down at all. Taji's expression changed slightly. He had never thought that the new sect master of the Bloodsword sect would be so powerful. He immediately raised his guard. At the same time, an extremely powerful saint force wildly surged out of his body, quickly condensing into a 3-finger-wide sword in his right hand. He then swung out with lightning-like speed, producing a powerful and sharp sword Chi that collided with Jinshin's gray sword Chi. Boom! The two strands of sword Chi collided, erupting with a great rumble. The powerful ripples of energy caused the surrounding space to constantly tremble. The sword Chi from the base of the tower dispersed in the air, dispersing into the surroundings as the most primitive form of energy. However, the sword Chi formed from chaotic force remained intact. It continued to shoot toward the base of the tower, arriving before it in the blink of an eye. Taji's expression drastically changed. It was already too late for him to dodge, so he could only raise his sword to block in front of him. When the sword Chi formed from chaotic force collided with the saint weapon in front of Taji, it immediately erupted with a loud boom. Taji's body was blown back uncontrollably. He only stabilized himself after flying for over 10 kilometers. He was filled with shock. He had been completely stunned by the strength of the new sect master of the Bloodsword sect. He found it very hard to believe that the new sect master of the Bloodsword sect will be able to block a single strand of sword Chi with his strength at the 6th heavenly layer as a holy emperor. The new sect master was just too powerful. The imperial protector of Taji has actually been knocked back by a single strike from the new sect master of the Bloodsword sect. How is this possible? Am I seeing things? The imperial protector of Taji is a holy emperor at the 6th heavenly layer. Luo Duo's eyes widened as he stared at the imperial protector of Taji in disbelief. His heart churned. An emperor armament. It's actually an emperor armament. Fang Yin cried out as he stared at the emperor armament in Jinshin's hand. His face was filled with envy and shock. Taji held his sword in his right hand as he fused with the space around him. He crossed over 10 kilometers with a single step and arrived beside Fang Yin. He stared at the Emperor armament in Jinshin's hand in interest and only sighed after quite a while. It really is an Emperor armament. The Emperor armament really is powerful. It's all thanks to the Emperor armament that the sect master of the Bloodsword sect could force me back in a single strike. If it weren't for the Emperor armament, you definitely wouldn't be my opponent. Fang Yan's eyes turned cold. He said, Taji, since we're not the opponent of the new sect master of the Bloodsword sect alone, let's work together. We can't weaken the name of our Felicity Empire no matter what. That's for the best. Taji agreed without any hesitation. A surging presence radiated from his body as he charged toward Jinshin with Fang Yan. Jinshin's eyes turned cold. He said, I was already merciful with the strike earlier. Since you don't know what's good for you, don't blame me for being rude. With that, Jinshin's presence suddenly changed. At that moment, he seemed to have become a supreme sword as he radiated with an extremely sharp sword Chi. The Emperor armament in his hand suddenly trembled as he swung out without holding back at all. It turned into an extremely powerful sword Chi that pierced through space and shot toward Fang Yan. The strike was comparable to the full-powered strike of a 7th heavenly layer expert like the Holy Emperor. Wherever the sword Chi passed by, space would be ripped apart. From afar, it seemed like a black streak of light. Afterward, Jinshin charged forward with his sword and continued toward Taji. The Emperor armament in his hand shone with a black light as it stabbed out 3 times with a destructive presence. Jinshin's 3 strikes moved extremely quickly, leaving behind afterimages in the air. It seemed like all 3 strikes had been launched at the same time. Fang Yin was only at the 5th heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor, so how could he fend off Jinshin's sword Chi that possessed the might of the 7th heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor? He was heavily injured by the sword Qi, which pierced through his chest and left behind a hole. Taji became extremely stern as he faced Jinshin's 3 strikes. He used all his strength as a holy emperor at the 6th heavenly layer to block Jinshin's 3 strikes. However, due to the difference in strength, Taji was only able to block 2 strikes before the 3rd one pierced his heart. His entire body was pierced by the Emperor armament. Bang! Jinshin kicked Taji in the chest, sending him flying far away as blood spurted from his mouth. In the blink of an eye, the Imperial Protector who had hurried over from the Felicity Empire had all been heavily injured by Jinshin. Chapter 10:26. The 2 Imperial Protector, Taji and Feng Yin, hovered in the air with pale faces. Blood dripped from the corner of their mouths. Their snow-white robes had been dyed red, making them seem extremely miserable. Jinshin did not kill the 2 of them. The Tianyuan continent would face a calamity in the near future. The 2 of them were at the 5th and 6th heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor, so they would be the main force in fending off the invasion of the world of Forsaken Saints in the future. The 2 of you are nowhere near my opponent. You can leave. In the future, you are not allowed to interfere with the matters of the Bloodsword sect, where you will be opposing the Bloodsword sect. Jinshin stowed away the Emperor armament and calmly said to the 2 of them. Taji and Feng Yin looked at each other. Their faces were both ugly. They glanced at the heavily injured Luo duo nearby and gently sighed. Without saying anything else, they directly ripped open space gates and left. After the battle earlier, the 2 of them knew that Jinshin possessed the strength to kill them. However, he had shown mercy in the end, so the 2 of them could not say anything else. Taji and Feng Yin left and returned to the Felicity Empire together. With the 2 of them gone, Luo Duo lost his greatest support. His face immediately became ashen, but very soon, a gleam of light flashed through his eyes. Without any hesitation, he immediately ripped open a space gate in an attempt to escape. However, before his space gate could fully form, Jinshin suddenly appeared beside him. He directly punched the air, causing it to violently tremble. He forcefully stopped the space gate from forming. You have extremely great killing intent for the Bloodsword sect. If I spare you today, you'll definitely cause great damage to the Bloodsword sect once you become stronger in the future, so it's best if you stay behind. Jinshin's aura soared to the sky as he stared coldly at Luo Duo. Then he punched Luo Duo's chest, causing it to cave in. His bones and internal organs were all reduced to dust. Blood gushed out of Luo Duo's mouth. Luo Duo tried his best to hold back his injuries as he coldly stared at Jinshin and yelled, "I am the Imperial Protector of Felicity. If you kill me, the Felicity Empire will definitely flatten your Bloodsword sect. Houston will not live for long. He will not be able to protect the Bloodsword sect." Jinshin's face instantly sank when he heard this, and his eyes emitted surging killing intent as he said in a low voice, "You dare be disrespectful to Uncle Xiao? You're courting death." Jinshin radiated with terrifying killing intent. He strode through the air as he chased after Luo Duo. A faint layer of chaotic force radiated from his fist as he punched toward Luo Duo's head. Luo Duo's head was directly blown to pieces by Jinshin's furious punch. Before his soul could escape, it directly dispersed, having been wiped out. Even in death, Luo Duo had never thought that not only would his words save his life, but they would even hasten his death. Luo Duo, the Imperial Protector. The 4 Imperial Protector of the Kingdom of Longqi personally witnessed Luo Duo's death. They were all devastated. Jinshin glanced at the 4 sorrowful Imperial Protectors. Perhaps it was because his current increase in strength had affected his mentality, but he could not be bothered to deal with the 4 saint rulers of the Kingdom of Longqi unless there was some unresolvable grievance between the 2 of them. Jinshin no longer glanced at the 4 saint rulers of the Kingdom of Longqi. He directly flew toward the Imperial Palace of the Kingdom of Longqi. His soul had already locked onto the presences of Old Man Situ and Old Man Ma Teng. Seeing that Jinshin had no intentions of making things difficult for the 4 saint rulers of the Kingdom of Longqi, The four protectors no longer looked at them. One of them took Luo Duo's space ring before following Jianshin to a remote place in the Imperial Palace. At this moment, Old Man Situ and Old Man Ma Teng were lying in front of the door in fear. They observed the situation outside through a tiny crack in the door. The two of them gently trembled as their lips trembled. Their eyes were filled with deep fear. The two of them had carefully observed the battle in the sky from where they were hiding. They obviously were not unfamiliar with Jianshin's appearance because they had hunted down Jianshin in the Holy Emperor's kingdom a few years ago. Yet now, Jianshin had actually heavily injured two Holy Emperor-level experts right in front of their eyes. Moreover, he had killed one of them effortlessly. The two of them were deeply shocked by his supreme strength. They could not believe that it was all real. This Old Man Situ, why? Do you think he's really Jianshin? Old Devil Ma Teng transmitted his voice in a trembling voice. One could clearly hear his teeth chattering, producing a gurgling sound. It's over, it's over. It's over now. How has Jianshin suddenly become so powerful? I clearly remember that he was weaker than the two of us when we met him in the City of God last time. Old Man Situ's face was completely devoid of blood. At this moment, his heart had already been replaced by a thick sense of fear. Suddenly, Ma Teng's face drastically changed. He cried out, "Oh no, they're heading in our direction. How did I forget? The experts of the Bloodsword sect have ways to find us. Run." Ma Teng and Situ no longer cared about hiding themselves. They directly smashed through the roof and fled into the distance as quickly as they could. Seeing the true enemy who had killed his parents, Jianshin's uncontrollable killing intent immediately erupted. It permeated the air, causing the temperature of the surroundings to plummet. He shouted, "Do you really think you can escape from me?" Jianshin's shout was extremely loud and clear. It was like a thunderclap in the sky, deafening everyone. Situ and Ma Teng froze. They immediately trembled from Jianshin's shout. They subconsciously stopped as fear filled their hearts. Before a Holy Emperor expert, the two of them did not even have the ability to escape with their meager strength. Jianshin walked through the air with a sunken face. His tremendous presence had already locked on his Situ and Ma Teng, immediately making them feel like a huge mountain was pressing down on them. Even breathing became difficult. Suddenly, Situ and Ma Teng dropped to their knees at the same time. They constantly kowtowed to Jianshin and begged, "Senior Jianshin, please spare us. That matter really has nothing to do with us." It was the Tiger King of the Gilligan clan who arranged everything behind the scenes. The Tiger King forced us to do that. If we didn't obey, he would have killed us. Senior Jianshin, the main culprit is the Tiger King, not us. We're only pawns in the Tiger King's hands. Yeah, Senior Jianshin, we're only pawns in the Tiger King's hands. We can't even protect ourselves, so it's useless even if you kill us. Please be magnanimous and forgive us. If you want revenge, go find Tiger King. The Tiger King is your true enemy. Ma Teng imitated Situ and loudly begged for mercy. He acted like he had been wronged, making him seem as pitiful as he could be. Jianshin coldly stared at Situ and Ma Teng. The killing intent in his eyes did not weaken at all. Instead, it became even more powerful. He slowly pulled out the Emperor armament from his space ring. Jianshin would never let these two people who had killed his parents die so easily. Situ and Ma Teng became even more frightened when they saw Jianshin pull out the Emperor armament. They moved their hands together and took out the items in their space rings one by one. Senior Jianshin, if you let us go, everything in our hands will be yours. These Class 7 monster cores, these vast amounts of purple coins, and this wondrous great divination technique will all be yours. That's right, that's right. Senior Jianshin, the great divination technique is an ancient divine book. There's only one of it on the Tian Yuan continent. The two of us risked our lives to obtain it in a desperate situation. The value of this book definitely surpasses our names. Senior Jianshin, you won't lose out at all if we use this book to exchange for our names. Situ and Ma Teng both held a book high above their heads politely. It was obvious that the two books had been split into two with a single glance. "It's useless no matter what you say. I will definitely kill you today," Jianshan said word by word. His voice was extremely cold. With that, he immediately stabbed out with the Emperor armament in his hand. With a tremble of his arm, the Emperor armament turned into a series of blurs, enveloping the two old men. He had already stabbed out countless times in a short moment with unbelievable speed. The blurs overlapped, enveloping the entire region. It was impossible to tell what was real and what was fake. Arg, Situ, and Ma Tong cried out miserably. Flesh and blood splattered in the area enveloped by the sword silhouettes. Pieces of minced flesh and a red mist of blood drifted down from the sky, dyeing the space red. Situ and Ma Tong constantly cried out. Their voices became more and more miserable, becoming more and more painful. It was hair-raising. A while later, Jinshin's sword finally stopped. Aside from their heads, the two old men had been reduced to blood-red skeletons. Not a speck of flesh remained. Even their organs had vanished. The saint weapons in their dantian had been dispersed by Jinshin, so the two of them had been frozen in the air by Jinshin's ability to freeze space. Otherwise, they probably would not have been able to hover in the air at all. "Jinshin, just kill us if you want to. Why torture us like this?" Old man Situ roared in a hoarse voice. He really could not bear this kind of torture. This was simply not something that a human being could endure. "It won't be that easy if you want me to kill you with a single strike. I will make you pay double for the blood debt from back then. I will cut you to pieces," Jianshan said through gritted teeth. Afterward, he swung the Emperor armament again, chipping away their bones bit by bit. Jianshan tortured Situ and Ma Tong for 4 whole hours. Only when their heads remained did he destroy their souls, causing them to vanish from the world forever. Chapter 10:27. Although the methods used against Ma Tong and Situ were rather cruel, they had killed Jinshin's parents. The pain that Jinshan felt was not something that could be compensated for by physical pain. Jinshin knew that if the 4 protectors of the Bloodsword sect had not arrived in time, Lore City and Chanyang Prefecture probably would have been wiped out. The strong preyed on the weak. This was the law of survival in this world. There was no reason to speak of. Strength was the supreme authority that determined everything. Ruijin, Blackfish, Hongyan, and the others stood behind Jianshan silently with the 4 protectors. Their expressions did not change at all. The bloody storms they had experienced in the past were not something that Jianshan could imagine. What had they not seen before was completely normal to them. After a long while, Jianshan finally calmed down a little. He lowered his head slightly and quickly descended from the sky, landing on the ground. The great divination technique that had fallen from Situ and Ma Tong's hands lay on the ground silently. The yellowed leaves quickly flipped through the pages with the gentle breeze, revealing a large pile of small words. Jianshan waved his hand, and the 2 books were immediately pulled into Jinshin's hand by an invisible force. Jianshan studied the books in his hand. He saw that they were made from an unknown piece of paper and golden thread. The paper was extremely tough and difficult to destroy. The marks of time had left its mark on them. Who knew how long they had been there? These 2 books were indeed one book, but Situ and Ma Tong had split them into 2 by using the golden thread. Each of them held half of the incomplete book. Only when the 2 books were stacked together would they truly be a complete book. What are these books? Why do the 2 of them, saint rulers, make them sound so magical? Jianshin mumbled inside before stacking the 2 books together. He flipped to the first page and began to read. Jinshin's eyes gradually lit up as he read through the books. His calm heart began to beat rapidly as well, becoming rather excited. In the end, he could not help but sigh. This really is a divine book. It's actually so magical. The great divination technique was not a so-called powerful battle skill or a cultivation method. Instead, it was an extremely wondrous book. Its wondrous aspect was that it could predict the future, understand the truths of the world, and see what would happen in the future. It could also find the person you were looking for and obtain the answer you wanted. It's just too wondrous. It's just too wondrous. I never thought that there would be such a wondrous book in the world. It's unbelievable. Jianshun praised. He was amazed. The wondrous aspects of the great divination technique were just too heaven-defying. Once you grasped the great divination technique, nothing in the world would be able to trap you because you would understand everything. You would be able to see through the fog and see the truth. All schemes and schemes would be useless before you. You would even be able to see through a person's past and present life. The beginning of the great divination technique was written in text, while the back was filled with simple, yet extremely complicated lines and diagrams. Jinshin's soul suddenly shuddered when he saw the lines and diagrams. At that moment, he suddenly experienced a strange feeling. The lines and diagrams seemed to merge with the world and the laws. They seemed simple, but they were filled with endless mysteries. They were extremely profound. The great divination technique is wondrous, but it's extremely difficult to learn. If you want to predict the future, you need to have an extremely deep understanding of the great divination technique, Jinshin thought. He already knew how profound the great divination technique was for the first part of the text, Jinshin thought. A book of Taoism. This is actually a book of Taoism. Suddenly, the voices of the sword spirits rang out in Jinshin's head. Their voices were filled with amazement, as if they were extremely surprised. A book of Taoism? Zing, Qingse, what is a book of Taoism? Jinshin was curious as he communicated with the sword spirits. Master, a book of Taoism is a book that records the Tao. The Tao has different names in different places. It's called the Laws of the World here, Qing Suo explained. If that's the case, then the lines and diagrams at the back of the book in my hand are all laws? Jinshin felt rather surprised. Correct. Master, there are many types of Tao. Different people can use different methods to write down different Tao. For example, the book in your hand completely uses lines and diagrams to write down the Tao. It seems simple, but it's extremely difficult to comprehend. However, the Tao recorded in this book is the extremely rare Tao of divination. In our original world, people who comprehend the Tao of divination are extremely rare. Even describing it as rare as phoenix feathers or qilin horns is a bit excessive. This is because the Tao of divination is extremely difficult to comprehend. Moreover, it doesn't possess any offensive abilities, so very few people can walk this path. This is because people who comprehend the Tao of divination are extremely weak in battle. Even if you comprehend the Tao of divination to the peak, you won't be able to defeat people at a lower level than you. This is an extremely unorthodox path, Xing explained. Jinshin's excitement immediately dissipated when he heard that. He sank into his thoughts, and the joy from obtaining the great divination technique completely vanished. Xing, Qing Suo, then do you think I should comprehend the contents of the great divination technique? Jinshin asked after some thought. Master, the great prophecy technique is indeed of little value to others. If one tries to comprehend the Tao of prophecy in a world filled with battles, it would be suicide. Once a battle breaks out, the person who has comprehended the Tao of prophecy will definitely be at a disadvantage. It will be very easy for them to die at the hands of their enemies. However, Master's path of cultivation is different from ordinary people, so Master must comprehend the Tao of divination. Xing said, Must comprehend it? Why is that? Jinshin asked in confusion. Master, the 18 layers of the chaotic body are only separated by Xing and I so that you can better understand the strength of the chaotic body. In reality, in our original world, the chaotic body was split into 4 major realms, which were the minor achievement, partial achievement, major achievement, and great perfection. The 1st to 6th layers of the chaotic body are the minor achievement. The 7th to 12th layers are the partial achievement, and the 13th to 18th layers are the major achievement. As for great perfection, that's for those who have surpassed the 18th layer. Great perfection is the highest realm of the chaotic body, but no one has ever reached the highest realm of the chaotic body. In other words, my chaotic body is still at the partial achievement of a minor achievement. It's still very far from the peak of the minor achievement, Jinshin thought. Master, the minor achievement of the chaotic body only requires energy. However, once you reach the partial achievement of the chaotic body, you need to comprehend the laws of the world. If you want to reach the great perfection of the chaotic body, you need to comprehend 3,000 ways and turn them into origin. Only then can you reach the great perfection of the chaotic body and cultivate true chaotic force. As a result, Master must comprehend the Tao of divination, Xing explained. Jianshan finally felt better with that. He murmured, "Looks like the great divination technique I've just obtained isn't completely useless to me. However, reaching the great perfection of the chaotic body is still too far away for me. I'll consider it in the future." The great perfection of the chaotic body was a realm beyond the 18th layer. With Jianshan's current chaotic body at the 3rd layer, he did not dare to hope for that. Chapter 1028. Jianshan calmed himself down and picked up the space rings that the Situ and Ma Teng had dropped. Afterward, he flew back into the sky and met up with Ruijin and the others. He said, "Senior Ruijin, I'll be going to Felicity Empire soon. Please construct a space gate." Ruijin did not turn down Jianshan's request. He agreed without any hesitation and said, "I just happen to have seen the locations of the 3 great empires on the Tianyuan continent, so I know their exact locations." With that, Ruijin extended a finger and casually swiped at the space before him. Space immediately ripped open, quickly forming a space gate. Jianshan stared at Ruijin's simple action without blinking. His eyes shone brightly as he sank into his thoughts. He already knew that once he reached the partial achievement of the chaotic body, his future breakthroughs would no longer be so smooth. He needed to comprehend the laws of the world every time he broke through, so he was especially serious when he watched Ruijin rip open space. Not only does Senior Ruijin's ability to rip open space contain the comprehension of space, but it also contains the control of energy. Space is also a type of law, and energy has its own way as well. Looks like we've already begun to come in contact with laws as saint rulers, but we've only come in contact with the surface, Jianshan murmured inside as he sank into his thoughts. Once I deal with the matters on hand, I'll immediately go to Mercenary City and get Shaoling to demonstrate the mysteries of the world for me to comprehend. I'll do my best to increase my strength. With the space gate formed, Jianshan, Ruijin, the others, and the 4 protectors of the Bloodsword sect immediately vanished from the sky above the kingdom of Longqi. Yu had been sent into the artifact space by Jianshan while he was fighting the Holy Emperor. The Felicity Empire was one of the 3 great empires on the Tianyuan continent. It possessed a long history and possessed 2 of the 7 renowned capital cities of the Tianyuan continent. They were the Celestial Star Imperial City and the Thunder City. The Celestial Star Imperial City was the imperial capital of the Felicity Empire, where the Imperial Palace was located. As the imperial capital of the Felicity Empire and one of the 7 great capital cities of the Tianyuan continent, the prosperity of the Tiangang Royal City went without saying. The city was filled with organizations. There were countless clans of various sizes, and experts were as dense as clouds. However, there was an exception. Although the Celestial Star Imperial City was filled with all sorts of people, it was extremely safe. Fights rarely occurred. Jianshan, Ruijin, and the others directly appeared above the Celestial Star Imperial City through the space gate. They hovered in the air and looked down at the ground below. With a rough glance, they found the Imperial Palace and immediately flew toward it. At this moment, in the Felicity Empire's Imperial Palace, within a majestic hall, the pale-faced Fong Yin and Taji, the 2 imperial protectors who had just fled from the kingdom of Longqi, were sitting cross-legged on a praying mat with their eyes closed as they adjusted their breathing. Opposite the 2 of them was a middle-aged man with a medium build, dressed in a gorgeous gold-plated robe. He sat there with a gloomy expression on his face. His sharp eyes were filled with anger as he glanced at Fong Yin and Taji. The middle-aged man was extremely handsome. Moreover, he gave off a unique aura of an emperor. He was filled with dignity. He was one of the imperial protectors of the Felicity Empire. His strength surpassed Fong, Yin, and Taji having reached the peak of the seventh heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor. At the same time, he was the emperor of the Felicity Empire who had abdicated many years ago, so he was a member of the imperial family. The Bloodsword sect is far too arrogant. They actually dared to injure my Felicity Empire's imperial protector. How preposterous! Moreover, I can feel that the imperial protector's aura has already vanished. He must have met with some mishap. The Bloodsword sect has gone too far. Do they really think that they can trample on the dignity of the Felicity Empire just because they have Houston behind them? The middle-aged man was indescribably furious as he let out a deep roar. The Felicity Empire was one of the three great empires of the Tianyuan continent. Even among ancient clans, there were very few people who could match up to them. Obviously, their dignity was more important than anything else. The Bloodsword sect had heavily injured two of their imperial protectors without any regard for the consequences, and even killed one of them. This was not something that the Felicity Empire could accept. At the same time, the Holy Emperor was a peak power of the Felicity Empire. Luo Duo's death was an extremely heavy loss to the Felicity Empire, because even with the entire Felicity Empire in perspective, there were only a handful of experts who had reached the level of the Holy Emperor. Experts like that could not be obtained just because they wanted to. The middle-aged man immediately stood up from the cushion. Coldness flickered through his eyes as he said with a deep voice, "Houston actually dares to offend our Felicity Empire before he reaches the end of his life. Looks like he's probably planning on doing something great while he's still alive. If that's the case, let's strike first and wipe out the Bloodsword sect. With the strength of our Felicity Empire, wiping out the Bloodsword sect won't be a problem. But how are we supposed to deal with Houston? At the same time, the Bloodsword sect has a new sect master aside from Houston. He wields an Emperor armament and is extremely powerful. He'll definitely be able to fight you," Taji said with a heavy voice. "I'll keep the new sect master busy. As for Houston, I'll leave him to the Ancestral Emperor. Although the Ancestral Emperor is slightly weaker than Houston, Zerkaiyun and Hao of the Holy Emperor's Empire still owe me a favor. I'll go to the Holy Emperor's Empire right now to find them so that they can assist the Ancestral Emperor. I think the three of them should be more than enough to deal with Houston," the middle-aged man said with a heavy voice. The middle-aged man said in a deep voice. However, as soon as he finished speaking, his eyes narrowed, and he suddenly raised his head to look into the distance. Very soon, Taji and Fong Yin sensed something as well. They both looked into the distance, and their faces immediately became ugly. "It's the new sect master of the Bloodsword sect. He's actually come to our Felicity Empire." A gleam of light flashed through the middle-aged man's eyes when he heard that. He snorted coldly. "Perfect timing. I like to see just what you want to do today. New sect master of the Bloodsword sect." With that, the middle-aged man strode outside. "None of you are allowed to leave." At this moment, an old voice rang out from the hall. It was filled with an irresistible might. The middle-aged man came to a sudden halt and suddenly turned around. On the throne at the highest point of the hall, an old man with a transcendent aura was already sitting there unknowingly. The middle-aged man's face changed slightly, and he immediately became respectful. He bowed at the old man with Ta Ji and Fong Yin and said, "Greetings to the Ancestral Emperor." The old man was the Ancestral Emperor of the Felicity Empire. He was over 5,000 years old now, so he was the most senior person in the imperial family. The Ancestral Emperor was not the founding emperor of the Felicity Empire. Instead, it was the title of the most senior and strongest emperor in the imperial family. There would always only be a single person. "Stay here. Don't go anywhere. Don't interfere with what's happening outside," the Ancestral Emperor said plainly. Emperor Taizu said calmly, but he looked into the distance. His deep gaze seemed to penetrate through the obstructions of the buildings, and directly he saw Jianshun and the others flying over. Jianshun, Ruijin, Honglian, and Blackfish directly flew into the imperial palace of the Felicity Empire. They directly landed on the roof of a building. "Who are you? Why aren't you going through the main entrance? Don't you know the rules of the Felicity Empire?" The baleful force around the four protectors was extremely difficult to conceal. As soon as Jianshan and the others steadied themselves, a yell rang out from the imperial palace. Several saint rulers radiated with powerful presences as they aggressively flew toward where Jianshan and the others stood. They surrounded Jianshan and the others. At the same time, all the imperial guards of the imperial palace were mobilized. They surged out from all directions like a flood, forming a sea of people very soon. They surrounded the building where Jianshan and the others stood. One of the saint rulers who surrounded Jianshan and the others glanced at the four protectors and asked with a deep voice, "You're from the Bloodsword sect?" The four protectors of the Bloodsword sect remained silent. They turned a deaf ear to their words. Jianshan remained emotionless. He coldly glanced past the saint rulers and coldly said, "May I ask if the king is present? Come out and accept your death." Jianshan's voice was very soft, but it reverberated through every corner of the imperial palace. Immediately, the presences of over 20 saint rulers radiated from various parts of the imperial palace. Another 20 saint rulers hurried over, quickly approaching Jianshan and the others. They surrounded Jianshan and the others. They were all hostile. Without a doubt, Jianshan's words indicated that he had come to cause trouble. He was an enemy, not a friend. "Who are you? How dare you cause trouble in the imperial palace of the Felicity Empire? Do you want to die sooner? Brat, you're the first person who's dared to cause trouble in the imperial palace of the Felicity Empire after so many years. If you know what's good for you, tie yourself up quickly and beg for the emperor's forgiveness. Only then will you be spared." The saint rulers who surrounded Jianshan all angrily called out. They knew that Jianshan's group was not to be trifled with, but this was the imperial palace of the Felicity Empire. It was their territory, and there were several imperial protectors present. Jianshan's face sank slightly. "I have no intentions of becoming your enemy. I've only come to kill the king. Are you going to hand this person over or not? How dare you look down on the dignity of the Felicity Empire? No matter who you are, your crimes are unforgivable. Let's go and capture all these troublemakers and hand them over to the emperor," a saint ruler sternly said. He possessed the strength of a 9th heavenly layer saint ruler, so he seemed to possess great prestige among the group of people. With that, the other saint rulers all began to move. "Stop!" At this moment, an old voice rang out from the depths of the imperial palace. They could only hear the voice, but they could not see the person. The voice was filled with an irresistible might. The saint rulers who surrounded Jianshan immediately stopped. They all politely bowed toward the depths of the imperial palace. They did not know who had spoken, but they knew that it was definitely an imperial protector. "Young man, my Felicity Empire has no grievances with you. May I ask why you've come to cause trouble?" The old voice rang out from the depths of the imperial palace. It was the ancestral emperor. "Your Felicity Empire's king gathered several million mercenaries to steal my city. Tell me, is that not a grievance?" Jianshan growled. He showed no fear at all. Chapter 1029. All the saint rulers around Jianshan's group were stunned when they heard what the ancestral emperor had said. At that moment, none of them dared to believe their ears, doubting if they had heard wrong. The Felicity Empire was a powerful empire that had stood on the Tian-Yuan continent for countless years. They were extremely powerful, and their dignity was sacred and inviolable. The Felicity Empire had always dealt with anyone who dared to step on the dignity of the Felicity Empire and cause trouble with them with an iron fist. They would directly teach the troublemakers a heavy lesson. They had never yielded like today, which filled them with disbelief. The current emperor stood outside a dazzling hall in the Felicity Empire. He wore his 9 dragons robes and a violet gold crown as he gazed at Jianshan's group under the protection of a large group of experts. "Your Majesty, what's wrong with the imperial protector today? Why is he asking for peace and even removing him from his position as king? He's an extremely talented saint ruler. Not only has he comprehended saint-tier battle skills that many Holy Emperor experts have failed to grasp, but he's also bound to reach the level of Holy Emperor in the future. Why can't we just give up on a genius like that?" Beside the emperor, A majestic middle-aged man in golden armor asked in confusion. The Felicity Empire's attitude toward their enemies clearly did not seem like the Felicity Empire's usual style. The emperor gazed into the depths of the imperial palace. His face was filled with undisguised respect as he murmured, "That's the ancestral emperor's voice. He must have his reasons for doing this." "What?" "It's the Honorable His Majesty, the Great Ancestor." The man's expression changed, and his demeanor suddenly became respectful. Even the faces of the experts around His Majesty changed greatly. They became respectful, and there was even some excitement among them. The ancestral emperor possessed a supreme status in the Felicity Empire. Although he had retired many years ago, every word he said was an imperial edict. Not only could he make decisions that affected the fate of the Felicity Empire, but he could also remove or appoint the current emperor and everyone in the imperial palace. It was just that Emperor Taizu had always been cultivating in the forbidden area behind the imperial palace. He almost never interfered in politics and rarely appeared once in hundreds of years. Very few people were qualified to see him in person and could only hear legends about him from the imperial palace. Therefore, when they learned that the old voice floating from the depths of the imperial palace was Emperor Taizu, everyone was so shocked. Hearing Emperor Taizu's words, a smile appeared on Jianshen's face. He cupped his fist towards the depths of the palace and said in a clear voice, "Senior is truly a decisive person. Since King Biao is no longer a citizen of the Felicity Empire, this one naturally has no enmity with the Felicity Empire. However, I would like to ask for King Biao to be handed over to this one. Little brother, the king is not in the imperial palace right now. If you want to find him, you might as well go to the Holy Emperor's kingdom. You should be able to find him there," the ancestral emperor said. "The Holy Emperor's kingdom," Jianshen murmured. He did not expect the king to run to the Holy Emperor's kingdom. However, he immediately continued to ask, "The Holy Emperor's kingdom is so big that finding a person is as difficult as ascending to heaven. Senior, please tell me the exact location." "The city of God, Tsar's family," the ancestral emperor said. Hearing this, Jinshin's eyes suddenly flashed. The scene of the Tsar's family being attacked from all sides in the city of God suddenly appeared in his mind, causing his face to become somewhat gloomy. "Senior, thank you for telling me. Goodbye." Jinshin cupped his fists towards the depths of the imperial palace and then left with Ruijin and the others. "Little brother, our Felicity Empire is willing to be friends with you forever. If you have time in the future, you might as well come to our Felicity Empire for a visit." The ancestral emperor's voice came again. His voice drifted far away and clearly passed into Jinshin's ears. After leaving the imperial palace, Jinshin and the others left through a space gate constructed by Ruijin and headed straight for the Holy Emperor's kingdom. After Jinshin left, the middle-aged man in the resplendent palace in the depths of the imperial palace looked at the ancestral emperor in confusion and asked, "Ancestral emperor, why do we have to speak to them so humbly? Is our Felicity Empire afraid of a mere bloodsword sect? As long as we work together with Tsar, Kaiyun, and Hao Wu, destroying the bloodsword sect will be a piece of cake." The ancestral emperor gently sighed when he heard that and said, "Our Felicity Empire is indeed capable of destroying the bloodsword sect. However, I never thought that he would become the master of the bloodsword sect. What a surprise." Emperor Taizu's face suddenly became serious. He stared at the three people in front of him and said, "You three must remember that in the future, you must not have any conflicts with the bloodsword sect. If you meet anyone from the bloodsword sect, you must treat them with respect and never offend them. Understand? Ancestral Emperor, just who is the new master of the bloodsword sect for you to fear him so much?" The middle-aged man was filled with curiosity. He's someone we cannot afford to offend. He's the only person who has openly provoked the 10 Protector clans in all these years and made the Protector clans unable to do anything to him. At the same time, he's offended the path lore of carnal desires and the two great holy emperors of the beast god continent. Yet he can still strut around the Tian Yuan continent fearlessly. With that, the ancestral emperor stared at the three of them deeply and said, I think you should know who he is." The three Holy Emperor experts became dumbfounded when they heard that. Their faces paled. They finally understood just who they had offended. Although they had never seen Jinshin's appearance, they had heard of Jinshin's great reputation. Basically, all the peak experts on the Tianyuan continent knew of Jinshin's name. However, there were still a few people who had never seen Jinshin's appearance. In the city of gods of the Holy Empire, Bibi was wearing a luxurious robe embroidered with golden threads. He was currently sitting in the main hall of the Tsar family, chatting with the Tsar family's Grand Elder with a smile on his face. Although by shoulder to shoulder seemed composed on the surface, no one knew that he was filled with anxiety inside. He was not calm at all. He had learned many days ago that Jinshin had returned in a powerful manner. Not only had he taken back Flame City with lightning speed, but even his father, by Yifei, had died to Jinshin's hands. This filled him with deep fear because he knew that Jinshin would definitely come looking for him. He would never let him go. He had gone to find the ancestral emperor of the Felicity Empire in an attempt to ask him to deal with Jinshin, but he had been turned down. Afterward, he had come to the Tsar family of the Holy Emperor's empire in an attempt to find experts to deal with Jinshin. Grand Elder, by shoulder to shoulder, has already stayed here for several days. May I ask if the esteemed senior Tsar Kai Yun is willing to meet with me? I have something important to tell you. By shoulder to shoulder, finally, could not sit still and made the same request to the Grand Elder. The Grand Elder of the Tsar family was a ninth heavenly layer saint ruler. Although he was stronger than by shoulder to shoulder and belonged to one of the three great clans, by shoulder to shoulder was publicly acknowledged as one of the 9 kings with the greatest talent in the Felicity Empire. He also knew a saint-tier battle skill, so he treated by shoulder to shoulder politely. "Don't be impatient, King Baisho. I have already conveyed your request to the ancestor. If the ancestor wants to see you, you will naturally give the order." "King Baisho, please wait here for a few more days," the great elder said with a smile. By shoulder to shoulder's face became ugly. He had already waited here for several days. If this continued, he might not be able to see the ancestor of the Tsar family, even if he waited for another year or so. Suddenly, a thought flashed through by shoulder to shoulder's mind. He clasped his hands and said, "Grand Elder, please pass on my request to the esteemed senior Tsar, Kai Yun again. By shoulder to shoulder's relationship with the heavenly enchantress is not shallow. I have heard many things of the past from the heavenly enchantress, including the passionate love between Senior Tsar Kai Yun and Senior Tsar Kai Yun. Junior has come this time to offer a plan that can dissolve the barrier between Senior Tsar Kai Yun and Senior Tsar Kai Yun, allowing Senior Tsar Kai Yun to reconcile with Senior Tsar Kai Yun." Hearing this, the eyes of the Grand Elder of the Tsar family narrowed and immediately became solemn. He stared at by shoulder to shoulder. He said, "By shoulder to shoulder, King, is what you said true? If you have deceived the ancestor, the consequences will be extremely severe." "Absolutely true." By shoulder to shoulder solemnly swore. "Bring him to see me." As soon as by shoulder to shoulder King finished speaking, a cold female voice rang out from the hall. It was impossible to tell where the voice had come from. The Grand Elder hurriedly put down the teacup in his hand and stood up from his chair. He respectfully said, "Yes, ancestor." Deep beneath the Tsar family's mansion, there was a huge cavern. Inside the cavern, a purple palace stood silently. By shoulder to shoulder, King entered the depths of the cavern under the lead of the Grand Elder. He directly entered the purple palace and stopped in front of a tightly shut secret room. "Ancestor, according to your orders, by shoulder to shoulder King has been brought here," the Grand Elder respectfully said to the tightly shut secret room. "By shoulder to shoulder, you can leave." A cold female voice rang out from the secret room. Her voice was completely emotionless. "Yes," the Great Elder replied respectfully, then immediately left. By shoulder to shoulder King greets the esteemed senior Tsar Kai Yun. Standing outside the door of the secret room, by shoulder to shoulder's expression became respectful as he bowed deeply. "By shoulder to shoulder, you said you have a way to mend a relationship between me and Hao Wu?" "Yes, by shoulder to shoulder indeed has a way to mend a relationship between Senior Tsar Kai Yun and Senior Hao Wu." Senior Czar Kaiyin can give a try. By shoulder to shoulder, carefully said. His heart was filled with nervousness. Speak, what method? Czar Kaiyun's voice rang out from the secret room. This time, there was a hint of urgency in her voice. By shoulder to shoulder was about to speak when suddenly, a huge aura came from outside and enveloped the entire city of gods. By shoulder to shoulder, who was underground, could clearly feel it. Chapter 10:30. Jianshan glanced at the familiar city below him as he hovered in the air. He could not help but think of everything that had happened to him in the past. He could not help but become slightly melancholic. Czar family of the 8 great clans of the city of God, I, Jianshan, have returned. In the past, all of you worked together to attack me, almost killing me in the city. Today, I, Jianshan, will look down on your city of God, Jianshan said in a deep voice. His gaze became even colder as he spoke. Soon after, an extremely vast presence radiated from him, enveloping the entire city of God. The presence was filled with undisguised battle intent. Many years ago, Jianshan possessed extraordinary strength, but he still needed to act carefully in the city of God. There were many experts that he could not afford to provoke, but now he could look down on the entire city of God. He had openly challenged the authority of the 7 capital cities of the Tian-Yuan continent. Jianshan's presence alarmed all the people in the city. Regardless of their strength, they could all clearly sense how vast the presence was. Some of the weaker people even felt like a boulder was pressing down on their chests when they faced the presence. They even struggled to breathe. What tremendous presence! Who is the person who gives off this presence? Is he challenging the city of God? Similar voices rang out everywhere in the city of God. The empty streets were filled with people very soon. At that moment, all the people in their rooms surged out. There were even many people who stood on the roofs and looked at the sky. In the 8 clans of the city of God, the ancestors of the 8 clans all opened their eyes at the same time. They all stared outside in shock. Without any hesitation, they immediately stopped cultivating and left the room as quickly as possible. In the Radiant Saint Master Union, at the very center of the city of God, there was an extremely luxurious room at the highest point of the huge castle. The president of the union sat on the bed with his eyes closed. Suddenly, a tremendous presence appeared from outside, causing the president to open his eyes immediately. He immediately looked outside the window in the direction of the presence and frowned. He said with a heavy voice, "What a powerful presence! A person who can give off such a tremendous presence is at least at the level of the Holy Emperor. Moreover, the presence is accompanied by a powerful battle intent. Even with the entire continent in perspective, there's rarely anyone who can match it. Strange, who is this person? Why is he releasing his battle intent so recklessly in the city of God? He's clearly provoking the Tsar family. However, I don't seem to remember when the Tsar family has offended such a powerful enemy." The president of the Radiant Saint Master Union murmured. He was filled with doubt. At this moment, the door was pushed open and the Grand Elder walked in with a stern expression. As soon as he entered, he said, "The person who's come must be looking for trouble with the Tsar family. He's not weak. President, why don't we go take a look? I hope this person can heavily injure the Tsar family. That way, the pressure on our union will be reduced." The president sank into his thoughts. He carefully sensed the presence, and a sliver of doubt gradually appeared on his face. He said, "That's strange. Grand Elder, why do I feel that this presence is somewhat familiar? It's as if I've seen this person somewhere before. However, I don't remember seeing this presence among all the Holy Emperor experts I've come in contact with. It's really strange, really strange. Who is this person?" Hearing that, the Grand Elder's expression changed and a sliver of surprise appeared in his eyes. He said, "For what you've said, I also feel that this presence is somewhat familiar. However, I can't remember who it is. President, since we can't guess, why don't we go take a look and see who this person is?" Afterwards, the president and Grand Elder left the Radiant Saint Master Union with several saint rulers. They flew in the direction of the presence with lightning speed. In the Tower of Radiance of the Radiant Saint Master Union, An extremely ordinary-looking old man held a towel as he carefully wiped the tables and books there. Suddenly, the old man's hand paused, and a gleam of light immediately flashed through his indifferent eyes. He murmured, "Looks like the city of God is about to become lively again. I wonder which expert the Tsar family has offended." With that, the old man vanished. He had turned into a faint blur and left the Tower of Radiance with lightning speed. He flew in the direction of the presence. Several thousand meters above the Tsar family in the city of God, Jianshun, Ruijin, and the four protectors of the Bloodsword sect hovered there quietly. Before long, several tremendous presences appeared in the surroundings. They moved extremely quickly, arriving around Jianshun in just a few seconds. They surrounded Jianshun's group 100 meters away. The saint rulers were the ancestors of the 8 clans of the city of God. They were all stern as they stared at Jianshun cautiously. However, none of them dared to make a ruckus because they could tell from Jianshun's presence that he was a supreme expert on par with the Holy Emperor. He was not someone they could provoke. "May I ask for Senior's name? Is there some misunderstanding between you and our city of God that has made you so angry?" An ancestor of the 8 clans clasped his hands at Jianshun. He spoke extremely politely. Jianshun coldly glanced past the ancestors of the 8 clans. His gaze was extremely sharp, like 2 unsheathed swords. Anyone who met his gaze would feel like they'd been stabbed by a sword. They would feel a slight pain, making them shiver. "Senior? Ha 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 ha. I never thought that I would actually become the senior you speak of. People of the 8 clans, have you forgotten about me so quickly? Open your eyes and take a good look at who I am." Jianshun laughed aloud. His voice was filled with mockery. With that, the saint rulers of the 8 clans immediately began to carefully study Jianshun. Very soon, one of them recognized Jianshun and his face drastically changed. Disbelief filled his face as he involuntarily cried out, "Why, you're Yang Yutian. You're Jianshun." The expressions of all the saint rulers of the 8 clans drastically changed when they heard the name Jianshun. Shock filled their eyes. They were unable to connect the Holy Emperor before them, who radiated with a tremendous presence, to the young man who had almost died in the city of God several years ago. Other than that, the ancestors of the 8 clans learned something else as well. Jianshun's background came from one of the 10 protector clans of Chanyang Prefecture. He was a direct descendant of the protector clans of Chanyang Prefecture, so his status was incomparable to theirs. At this moment, 2 streaks of white light shot through the sky, quickly flying over. The president and grand elder of the Union stood on a cloud completely condensed from radiant saint force as they flew over with a few other saint rulers. "Yang Yuqian, you're Yang Yutian." The president and grand elder recognized Jianshun with a single glance, and both cried out. At that moment, the 2 of them could no longer maintain their usual composure. Shock filled their faces. They struggled to believe that the person who radiated with such a tremendous presence was actually the most outstanding genius in the history of the Union, Yang Yutian. Jianshun also discovered the arrival of the president and grand elder. His expression immediately became rather mixed, but it disappeared very quickly. Now is not the time to catch up with them. "Jianshun, have you come to the city of God to avenge what happened in the past?" At this moment, a cold female voice rang out from the sky. With that, a middle-aged woman in a violet dress silently appeared in the sky, facing Jianshun from afar. "Greetings to Senior." The ancestors of the 8 clans all bowed when they saw the middle-aged woman. Their faces were filled with respect. The middle-aged woman was the ancestor of the Tsar family, Tsar Kaiyan. Tsar Kaiyan directly ignored the greetings of the ancestors. She stared at Jianshun and the others closely. When her gaze landed on Ruijin and black fish behind Jianshun, she immediately became extremely stern. "You should be the ancestor of the Tsar family. In the past, you want to steal the winged tiger from me and even wanted to kill me. Do you still remember?" Jianshun stared at Tsar Kaiyan coldly. Tsar Kaiyan could not help but think of what had happened in the past when she heard that. Her gaze towards Jianshun immediately became rather soft. She stood up and gently sighed. Jianshun, I never thought that you would become so powerful in just a few years. However, I had no choice in the matter back then. The ancient winged tiger was with you, and the beast god continent had invaded our continent because of the winged tiger. In order to save the continent, we could only return the winged tiger to the beast god continent. Otherwise, the Tian Yuan continent would have been destroyed. Could you bear to see that happen? Jianshan was emotionless as he coldly said, "We'll deal with our grievances from back then later." Ancestor of the Tsar family, let me ask you, is the Bijou king of the Felis continent with you? Bijou is indeed with our Tsar family, Zerkayun gently replied without any emotion. Chapter 10:31. Tsar Tsayun's face immediately changed when she heard Jinshan's words. She said, "Jinshan, I don't care what enmity you have with Baisho, but I hope that you can resolve it in the future. Right now, I want hand Baisho over to you. Since you won't hand over Baisho, I can only go to the Tsar family personally." Jinshan's gaze became rather cold. Powerful battle intent and killing intent appeared from him at the same time, rapidly rising. The Emperor armament had already appeared in his right hand. Chaotic force filled with a destructive presence slowly radiated from it, constantly revolving around the Emperor armament. "Hold on." At this moment, an old voice rang out with some urgency. An old man in his 70s flew over with lightning-like speed. He held a person in his hand. It was Baisho. The Tsar family currently had 2 holy emperor experts. Aside from Tsar Kaiyun, there was only this old man. "Jianshun, old man, Zerfimor greets you." The old man first politely greeted Jianshun before continuing. "Jianshun, our Tsar family is willing to hand Baisho to you. We hope that our enmity can be resolved peacefully. At the same time, we are willing to apologize for what we did to you in the past. We hope that we can bury the hatchet." The old man was filled with sincerity. He did not want to become enemies with Jianshan at all. Baisho was immobilized in Tsar Fimor's hand. He paled in fright when he heard what Tsar Fimor said because he knew extremely well just what would happen to him if he ended up in Jianshan's hands. "Senior Kaiyun, save me. Senior Kaiyun, save me. If I die, Senior Kaiyun, you will never be forgiven by Senior Limitless." Baisho begged for mercy. He had placed all his hopes on Tsar Kaiyun. Tsar Tsayun's face sunk as determination filled her eyes. With a slight sway of her body, she silently arrived beside Tsar Fimor. Her slender hand struck towards Tsar Fimor with extremely powerful energy. At the same time, Tsar Tsayun's free left hand reached toward Baisho. "Kaiyun, are you crazy? What are you doing?" Tsar Fimor's face drastically changed. He had never thought that Tsar Kaiyun would suddenly attack him. He was her great-grandfather. Although it had all happened suddenly, Tsar Fimor was still a battle-hardened holy emperor expert. Tsar Tsayun's attacked suddenly, but he reacted in the shortest amount of time. Isho, her attack, his hand was covered with old skin. He gathered a dense amount of world force in a single moment. His hand. Baisho, Kaiyun, S Fimor by Fimor, S face as sign, S Fims. Although Tsar Kaiyun was Tsar Tsayun Sr. and was much older than her, his strength was far inferior to hers. Tsar Tsayun's casual palm strike sent him flying far away, and he only managed to regain control of his body after flying a few thousand meters. On the other hand, Tsar Kaiyun was still floating in her original position as steady as Mount Tai. Her figure didn't even sway. It was as if she had just casually struck out with her palm. She had also snatched the Bijou king from Tsar Tsayun's hand and imprisoned him in front of her left palm by an invisible force. "Go down and stay there," Tsar Kaiyun said coldly. She then threw Biao Wang down into the courtyard of the Tsar family. Tsar Fimor had only been sent flying by Tsar Tsayun's palm strike, so he was not injured at all. Tsar Fimor immediately panicked when he saw how Tsar Kaiyun wanted to protect Bijou Wang. He immediately flew over from afar and begged, "Kaiyun, do you know what you're doing right now? Have you ever thought about what kind of disaster you're bringing our clan into? Have you ever considered the benefits of the clan? Kaiyun, don't do anything stupid. Bijou Wang is not related to our clan at all. Just listen to your great-grandfather's advice and hand him over for the sake of the clan." There's no need for you to bring the entire clan into danger for an outsider. Zarkayun remained unmoved. She coldly stared at Zarfimor as a sliver of unconcealable resentment appeared in the depths of her eyes. She coldly said, "Do you still remember what happened in the past? It was because of your forceful interference that Hao Wu and I were separated, causing me to live in pain for the rest of my life. Back then, I only hated that I was not strong enough and could not resist the orders of elders like you. I could only obey. But now, I, Zarkayun, am no longer the Zarkayu of the past. Whatever I want to do now, you no longer have the qualifications and ability to control me." Hearing Sayun's cold voice, Zarfimor felt as if his heart was being pierced by needles. He painfully said, "Kaiyun, what happened in the past was indeed your great-grandfather's fault. It was your great-grandfather who let you down. It was your great-grandfather who ruined your happiness. However, you're still a member of the Zar clan. The blood of the Zar clan flows in your veins. Could it be that you have the heart to watch the Zar clan decline? Zar clan, don't talk to me about the Zar clan. In your eyes, there's only the Zar clan." Sayun's emotions suddenly became somewhat agitated. Her beautiful eyes shot out a glint of shock as she stared sharply at Zarfimor. Pain and resentment coexisted as she gritted her teeth and said, "Since you are so afraid that I will bring trouble to the Zar clan, then from now on, I, Zarkayun, will sever all ties with your Zar clan. From today onwards, whatever I do has nothing to do with your Zar clan." Hearing this, the expressions of the saint rulers of the 8 great clans and the experts of the Zar clan greatly changed. "Don't, ancestor. You are the spiritual pillar of our Zar clan. You can't abandon us." The experts of the Zar clan all knelt in the void, each and every one of them incomparably sorrowful. "No, Kaiyun, you can't do this. You can't do this. Even if your ancestor has made thousands of mistakes, you can't treat the clan like this. The clan can't do without you." Zarfimor bitterly lamented as tears streamed down his face. His heart was filled with regret. Personally witnessing this scene, the president and grand elder of the Radiant Saint Master Union looked at each other. The scene before them had far exceeded their expectations. Before they came, they had never thought that such a huge change would happen to the Zar clan. As the strongest ancestor of the Zar clan, Zarkayun had actually announced that she was leaving the Zar clan. This was a shocking matter. Zarkayun painfully closed her eyes. She had stayed in the Zar clan for so long, and it was not that she had no feelings for them. It was just that between her clan and love, the latter was clearly more important in her eyes. For so many years, there has always been a barrier between Hao Wu and I. Since our clan has a method to remove the barrier between Hao Wu and me, I will protect Zar clan no matter what. Even if I die here today, I will not hesitate." Zarkayun thought to herself. Soon after, her tightly shut eyes suddenly opened. The moment she opened her eyes, Sayun's entire presence underwent an overwhelming change. A supreme battle intent that was no weaker than Jinshin's surged out from her body, soaring into the sky. At this moment, Sayun's eyes no longer held any pain. Instead, they were filled with determination. "Looks like you have no choice but to protect Zar clan." Jinshin snorted coldly. His presence rose steadily, vaguely showing signs of wanting to compete with Zarkayun. Sayun's gaze was sharp and cold. A faint green sword had already appeared in her hand. She said, "Jinshin, if you want to kill Zar clan, you'll have to step over my dead body." With that, Zarkayun took the initiative to attack. As the faint green sword in her hand danced gently, she stabbed out gently. Chapter 1032. Jinshin's gaze suddenly became extremely sharp. Although Sayun's attack did not create an earth-shaking disturbance, it made Jinshin become much more vigilant. He felt deeply threatened. Sayun's strength had completely exceeded Jinshin's. "Let me deal with her." Jinshin stopped Ruijin and the others. His battle intent became even more powerful as a surging sword chi radiated from him. Even though Zarkayun was very powerful, she was not undefeatable. Strands of chaotic force surged out from Jinshin's dantian, flowing through every corner of his body in a single moment. He pushed the defenses of the chaotic body to the limit. Jinshin's chaotic body had reached the third layer. Every single strand of chaotic force was condensed from tremendous amounts of energy. In particular, a single strand of chaotic force at the third layer was equivalent to the energy of a holy emperor who had just reached the third layer. As a result, Jinshin's chaotic force was consumed extremely slowly in battle. If he used it to defend himself, the rate of consumption was basically negligible. The emperor armament in Jinshin's hand began to gently tremble. It produced a gentle thrum before shooting out with destructive chaotic force. It received Zar Tsayun's attack fearlessly. Jinshin, your opponent has reached the peak of the 8th heavenly layer. She's about to reach the 9th heavenly layer, so be careful. Ruijin's voice rang out in Jinshin's head. Ruijin could tell Zar Tsayun's strength with a single glance, so he cautiously warned Jinshin. Jinshin became even more stern. With the power of the emperor armament, he could unleash the strength of a holy emperor at the peak of the 7th heavenly layer. He was still a level weaker than Zar Kaiyan. Jinshin and Zar Kaiyan clashed a few times with lightning-like speed. The battle was extremely intense and created a great disturbance. Every time their swords collided, it was like worlds were colliding, erupting with great booms. The ground cracked and space was obliterated. Violent ripples of energy and scattered sword chi were sent flying in all directions, forcing all the saint rulers in the surroundings to retreat time and time again. They stayed far away to avoid being caught in the crossfire. The City of God was one of the 7 capital cities of the Tian-Yuan continent. It had stood on the Tian-Yuan continent for countless eras, and it had remained standing even after the ancient wars. Obviously, it possessed defensive abilities. At this moment, an extremely huge barrier had risen above the City of God. It enveloped the entire city, blocking the scattered sword chi and ripples of energy that shot over. Although its defensive power was nowhere near as great as the barrier of Mercenary City, Jinshin and Zar Tsayun's attacks were unable to shake the barrier at all. At this moment, all the streets and alleys in the City of God were filled with people. The various buildings were filled with people, to the point where the roofs had almost collapsed. Everyone in the City of God was standing on the streets, looking up at the sky. They couldn't take their eyes off this rare, world-shaking battle. There was also a lot of discussion going on. Jinshin rapidly retreated. He had already begun to lose the upper hand. Although Zar Kaiyun was a woman, she was still a supreme expert who was about to reach the 9th heavenly layer. Every single one of her attacks possessed devastating power. Ruijin, Blackfish, and Honglian all stared at Jinshin. They were ready to take action at any time. Jinshin was their only hope of returning to their clansmen, so they viewed Jinshin's life as more important than anything else. At this moment, an old wooden hut stood silently on a mountain peak in the depths of an ancient forest several tens of thousand kilometers away from the City of God. The fierce wind in the sky caused the door to creak as it blew against it. It seemed like it could collapse at any time. Within the small wooden house, there was a middle-aged man who wore a white robe and was filled with an exuberant, heroic spirit between his brows. He had his eyes closed as he sat cross-legged on the wooden bed in cultivation. He was like an old monk in meditation, and he didn't move for a long time. Suddenly, the middle-aged man abruptly snapped open his eyes. Immediately, 2 visible streaks of light shot out from his eyes, causing the space before him to tremble slightly. The middle-aged man's eyes were extremely bright. He stared in the direction of the City of God with interest. He frowned slightly and murmured, "There's actually a battle between experts in the City of God. One of them has Tsayun's presence. What's going on there?" The middle-aged man was Hao Wu, who had gone to the continent where the 100 races resided and fought against a Class 8 magical beast before taking away its essence blood to cure the Grand Elder of the Radiant Saint Master Union. Hao Wu frowned as he sat on the bed. The light in his eyes flickered as he hesitated. He struggled to make up his mind. He murmured, "Should I go and take a look?" Hao Wu hesitated for quite a while before making up his mind in the end. He said, "Whatever. I'll just hide in the distance and take a look. I'll understand what's going on there." With that, Hao Wu vanished. He had silently made his way toward the city of God with unbelievable speed. The battle between Jianshan and Czar Kaiyun in the city of God rapidly grew further and further away. Very soon, they had left the city and arrived in a barren mountain range 100 kilometers away. They began to fight in the air above the mountain range. "Jianshan, you're not my opponent. If you promise me that you won't kill Bai Shou, we'll stop right now," Sir Kaiyun said coldly. "If we're talking about strength, I'm naturally not your opponent. But if we're talking about swordsmanship, I don't necessarily lose to you. I have to kill Bijou Wang. There's no room for negotiation." Jianshan refused without any hesitation. It was impossible for him to let Bijou Wang go. With that, Jianshan's arm suddenly jolted. The Emperor armament immediately transformed into a dense cluster of blurs that filled the space before him. They rapidly enveloped Czar Kaiyun. It was difficult to tell which of the blurs were real, as if every single one of them was real. They possessed great offensive power, which was a result of extreme speed. At the same time, Jianshan used the illusory flash to move around Czar Kaiyun like a ghost. He struck out with his sword with each strike faster than the last. He struck out with his full strength every single time, comparable to a full-powered strike from a peak 7th heavenly layer expert like the Holy Emperor. Czar Kaiyun's body and space allowed her to dodge Jianshan's attacks with ease. She did not use her eyes to look at the blurs in the surroundings. She struck out with her sword purely based on her instincts. She would perfectly block the attacks hidden in the blurs with each stab. She coldly said, "If that's the case, don't blame me for being merciless." A surging energy surged out from Czar Kaiyun's body, causing the space around her to distort. Czar Kaiyun pointed her sword at the sky, and immediately a dense azure light erupted. The terrifying energy was enough to break through space. "Heavenly Maiden scatters blossoms." Czar Kaiyun cried out, and the terrifying energy gathered in her sword immediately erupted. It turned into extremely dense sword chi that shot out in all directions. Every single strand of sword chi was no weaker than a casual strike from an 8th heavenly layer expert like the Holy Emperor. Jianshan's face changed slightly. He quickly retreated with the illusory flash and used the Emperor armament to block the storm-like attack of sword chi. Every single strand of sword chi that collided with the Emperor armament caused Jianshan's arm to become numb. Spatial freeze. A gleam of light flickered through Czar Kaiyun's eyes. She pointed at where Jianshan was standing with her left hand and immediately froze the space there, trapping Jianshan there firmly. Spurt, 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 with his body restrained. Over a dozen powerful sword chi immediately pierced Jianshan's body, creating over a dozen finger-sized holes on Jianshan's body. Bright red blood immediately flowed from the wounds. Jianshan bellowed at the sky. Destructive, chaotic force immediately erupted from his body. At the same time, the Emperor armament in his hand shone with a black light, breaking through space with supreme force and regaining his freedom. However, Czar Kaiyun had already silently arrived before Jianshan at this moment. Her sword shone with a dazzling azure light as she stabbed toward Jianshan's throat mercilessly.